Welcome back to Between Pages and Friends, a book club podcast hosted by Con and Lauren, two besties who read a lot of books, and John and Kyle, their supportive gamer husbands who've agreed to read with them. I'm Kyle.
I'm Con.
I'm Lauren.
And I'm John. Welcome back to our Throne of Glass book club. In this episode, we are starting the Tandem Read. If you're new here, this just means we're reading Empire of Storms and Tower of Dawn together, like they're one big book with all the events in chronological order. We have the chapter guide for this saved in our Instagram highlights, as well as a printed bookmark version available on our website at betweenpagesandfriends.com. All this to say, this is a book club style podcast, so there are no spoilers beyond the assigned chapters for each episode, but since we're reading both of these books each week, we will be discussing both. So if you're reading them separately, we'd recommend finishing both books before listening to these episodes.
Additionally, this is your mild content warning. We will be discussing themes from these books that include rolling heads and muscular forearms. And if you'd love to discuss these episodes with us and an amazing community of other book lovers, you should check out our Patreon. You can join our Discord for $5 a month in the Snack Court tier, where we now have dedicated forums for all of these episodes in the podcast. But if you'd also like early access to new episodes, merch discounts, a monthly book club, and so much more, you can join the Petering Book Club for $10 a month. Our Patreon is linked in the show notes or the description box below.
Lastly, if you haven't, please take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe. Telling your friends, writing a review is simply the best way to support the show and help us reach more people. Here is a recent review on Apple Podcasts from BaBeachBum9, titled the review, My Imaginary Friends, and wrote...
The Beach Bum is so good.
Anyway, they titled the review My Imaginary Friends and wrote, after following their Insta page, I was late to the podcast, but thoroughly enjoyed binging all the episodes and hearing the hot takes from these smarty pants. Was I oblivious when reading, or are they showing off? Seriously, who cares? These four friends have so much fun recapping and reviewing. It's a great way to relive the books when you've gone through all the SJM material out there currently. Look forward to reading with them eventually when I want to reread a book/series alongside them. Thank you, BaBeachBum9.
That is so cute.
That's awesome.
There's so many layers of that I love, from
That's
being
great.
an imaginary friend, first of all. So cute. And smarty pants. I guess that's just probably just Kyle over here, but I don't know that I've said anything.
All right. Well, now it's time for the longest pronunciation guide to date. Over to you, Con.
Thank you. It is the longest pronunciation guide to date, and I happen to have a cold, conveniently. So I will do my best on these. But buckle in, folks. We've separated the pronunciation guide this week into Empire of Storms, Terms and New Names, and Tower of Dawn. Lots and lots and lots of new names and a few new terms as well. So for Empire of Storms, we have Lorcan Salvatore, who we've met, one of Maeve's cadre, but I believe this is the first time we get his last name, so that is pronounced Salvatore. We meet Lord Wayland Darrow, Butthole of Terrason. Also mentioned are... You're welcome. It's true.
Official title.
It's on the paperwork. Also mentioned are Salone, Ironwood, and Gunnar, the remaining members of what was once Orlon Galathinius' court. And then there is Theralis, a great plain before Orinth. Caraver, we learn, is the name of Lady Lysandra's territory in Terrason, aka Lysandra Land. We do not get an explanation or a meaning from Lysandra on this name, but Kara and Ver can be translated to beloved glass or friend of glass, potentially symbolizing what Aelin did for her in Rifthold by freeing Lysandra and her magic, which is kind of cool. Then we get the Ilkin, some new creepy demons from Morath, and another mention of the Acanthus River. Over to Tower of Dawn. Here we go. The Kagan is the title for the ruler of the southern continent, similar to an emperor. What?
You wrote Tower of Dawn dish soap?
I did. I was really sleepy when I started this.
That's amazing. I'm always going to call it that now.
I also wrote Empire of Stormies up at the top. I don't know if you saw that.
Yep.
I missed that one.
She was I was reading in bed and she was next to me working on this, and all of a sudden she starts cracking up and I said, "What?" And that's what she was laughing at. She was laughing at herself for writing Tower of Dawn dish soap.
She said, that's so funny.
I was like, "Okay, yeah, that's nice. Good."
Really doesn't make
I'm
any
here for
sense.
it.
So, in the Tower of Dawn dish soap, first up we have the Coggin, the title for the ruler of the southern continent, similar to an emperor. Another form of this word is the Cogginate, referring to the Coggin's empire. Halha is the language of the southern continent. Dargon is the name of the Coggin's cavalry of horse riders. Some locations mentioned are Antica, which is the city they're currently in. Another form of that is Antican, for like Antican guards or Antican people. The Torre Chesme is the legendary healer's college, as Lauren likes to call it. Tigana is another city on the southern continent. Balrune is where Nezrin's own people had originally hailed. The Rooney Quarter is where Nezrin's uncle lives now. And the Tavin Mountains. Now we have the members of the Coggins family. The current Coggin's name is Urus. His oldest brother that he killed to take the Coggin title was named Orda. And then he has 6 children. The eldest is Argon. He's the Prince of Spies, the political intellectual, one of the brothers. The second born is Sartak, commander of his father's Rook riders, also known as the Rookin. Rooks are basically giant birds that you can ride on, and Sartak's Rook is named Kadara. This is really hard to say. Sartak's Rook is named Kadara. I really wanted his name to be pronounced Sartak.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's what I was saying.
Yeah,
It's gonna be hard to not say that. I know for me.
Yeah,
so.
perfectly acceptable to say Sartak. In the audiobook, she says Sartak, and it still is taking me a while to adjust to, so we might say Sartak. I don't know. Third born is Hasar, who is described as being not cute, but has fiery eyes. Her lover's name is Renia. Fourth born is Kashin. This is one I wanted to be pronounced Kashin, but his name is pronounced Kashin. He commanded the armies on land. Fifth is Duva. She is newly married and pregnant with her first child. And then sixth, who we learn was recently deceased, is named Tumaloon. And then over at the Torre Chesme, we have Hafiza, the healer on high. Kamala, the very first healer on high. Irene Towers, making a comeback, baby.
Finally. I'm so excited.
Her direct tutor's name is Erisha. And then the 4 names that she writes down on the paper with the 4 generations of women in her family were Olgnia, Marda, Rosanna, and Josephine. And then Kaja is the servant assigned to Kaal. And lastly, we have Kave, which is basically coffee. Thank you for tuning in for the world's longest pronunciation guide. Now it is time for the long-awaited chapter recaps. First of the tandem read. Over to you, Juan.
Thanks, Quan. Following the longest pronunciation guide we've ever had, this may be the shortest and most uneventful recap yet, so here we go with incredibly low expectations. It was night. It was fall. It was a fall night. It was nightfall. In the prologue of Empire of Storms, we get an Elena and Gavin point of view in the moments leading up to their battle with Erewhon. Elena has a plan, basically that everyone in this battle will die to give a future generation a chance to live. How poetic. This sounds like future Elena's problem. We kick off present events with Elide having traversed Oakwald Forest for weeks now, still heading north to Terrasen, and hopefully a better foot. Some witches are searching for her, and in a moment of hiding, she comes right into Lorcan's view, also hiding, and he starts the journey of following her, seeing what she's up to. Meanwhile, Aelin and her court have set up a meeting with Ren and Murtaugh and one of the other lords of Terrasen. Somewhere in the middle of the forest, a messenger arrives, changing the location of said meeting to a tavern. They anxiously head that way. In the meantime, Manon and her grandmother meet with the real Erewhon, no longer hiding under pretense. Manon is ordered to attack and overthrow Rifthold. She goes to Ghislaine, and Ghislaine gives basically an abridged version of Erewhon's background story. Back in Terracin, they arrive at the tavern to meet Ren and Murtaugh and the delightful Lord Darrow. And just when we've left 2 pricks in Rifthold, just like a weed, another one pops up to take its place. Only this one has a stick up as you-know-what and a chip on his shoulder, focusing all of his efforts on working against Aelin and has zero idea of the seriousness of the threat that resides in Morath. Men, am I right? Come on. Come on, nothing, ladies?
Hear, hear.
Thanks.
We're laughing so much we can't even focus on what you're saying. I'm just cracking up.
Amazing.
All right.
10 out of 10.
Thanks. In the meeting, Darrow denies Aelin her queenhood based on some very basic technicalities that, let's be honest, are most likely through probably bribery or blackmail. He essentially says, get us more allies and we'll reconsider your queenhood. Quick note, what allies are you working on getting, pal? But I'll leave that there. Rowan leaves for Rifthold when they find out that it's being attacked by the witches. Aelin, Adian, and Lysandra start their journey to the Dead Islands where they plan to meet Rowan and Dorian. And we're over to Tower of Dawn, the first chapter kickoff. Chaol and Nezrin finally arrive in Antica, and they're just in time for a funeral. Back in Aurelia, Iskra, of course, starts the siege on Rifthold before Manon and the 13 arrive. Manon saves Dorian from a yellow-legged witch, chopping off her head. Rowan comes up, snatches Dorian, but not before Dorian, pretty much saves Manon from Rowan. Dorian and Rowan make their way to one of the secret passages down into the tunnels. They escape the carnage, heading for Skulls Bay. There should be a rum called Skulls Bay, by the way. I think that would mark it well.
Ooh,
yeah. Anyway.
Mark it well.
Yeah.
Put it on the merch shop.
Exactly. We should.
Gonna start selling alcohol.
Yes, exactly. Let's just start our own little label, and we'll call the rum Skulls Bay. And there we go.
Sure, sounds great.
Down south in Annica, Nezrin and Chaol meet the Coggin. It doesn't really start off well, as he basically has all of the info on Aelin and their predicament. Also breaks the news to them about the attack on Rifthold, because obviously they don't know what has happened. Kashin visits Chaol and tells him that he suspects something amiss with Tumaloon's death. He asks Chaol to keep an eye out while he's here. Back in Oakwald Forest, Elide and Lorcan finally come face to face. But, as luck would have it, they also come face-to-face with some Elkin, some of the Duke's new lovely creations. Lorcan kills a few, and Elide miraculously uses her gift of persuasion and cunning to get away from one. Her and Lorcan meet back up and make a plan to travel together, protection in exchange for info on Morath and its layout. And let's give a round of applause as we welcome back Irene Towers to the show, everybody. Yes. Welcome, Irene.
Woo-hoo!
Tell us about yourself. Just kidding. She's been at the Torah Chesme for 2 years and is pretty much the top student there, but she is set to leave to fulfill her journey of returning to help with her healing gifts. However, Fiza has something else in mind. Irene is to try and heal an injured guest of the Coggin, the former captain of the guard and now hand to the king of Otterland. She pleads no, but Hafiza tells her one of her experiences as a healer, and also hints that maybe Irene would one day even be her replacement, which is kind of a big deal. With that, she kind of gets her hook, line, and sinker. Irene examines Chaol, says she'll send word if she'll be returning to help further. Irene discusses with Hafiza, noting the dark magic that aided his injury, and that she's never felt anything like it. She will attempt to heal Chaol, so there's that. Nezrin decides to go visit the family she has in Annica. On the way out of the castle, Sartak stops her and escorts her to the gates. Some shameless flirting, and he invites her to ride his rook sometime.
Ooh.
His bird mount, guys. Come on. And that wraps up this chapter section.
All right. Thanks, JON. Let's dive into the storm.
Ooh, I like that. That's nice. Wow.
Did you write that yourself?
No, it was nothing, guys. Come on. No, move on.
Kicking it off with Nightfall. Also mentioned in John's recap, but Gavin saying to Elena when they're talking about the war with Erewhon, he cannot be killed, Elena, and even if we manage to contain him or trap him, you know that we are only pushing the war onto someone else, to whoever one day rules these lands. Cool. Thanks, guys. Some fun little insight from these two.
Yeah, for real.
Yeah, and she's just like, okay, let's do it. Like,
Yeah.
not our problem.
It was that and like, let's do it. And also leave no hints for anyone. Like, leave no step-by-step guide on how to handle it later.
Yeah. What?
I mean, at some point, obviously, like Gavin gets away to write his diary. Is that what Kyle called it?
His diary.
His
Diary. Yeah.
His deathbed confessional.
Yeah.
But the thing is, like, you should make that information readily available to everyone, not just hidden on the wall of your tomb and be like, by the way.
Underneath Rifthold, underneath.
Yeah. Like, it should be in every library, taught in schools, just in case one of the kids becomes the next adventurer. Like, first grade stuff. If the Dark One ever rises, here's what we're going to do. Same thing as a tornado drill.
Like, tornado drill. But like Voldemort, like everyone knows kind of the name.
Right.
What's going on generally.
He's back.
They knew of Voldemort. You ask anyone, they're like, yeah, I know him. What of it?
Erewhon is the new Voldemort. Or at least he should have
must
been.
not be named.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
For sure. Yeah, and then later, as they're kind of talking, this just like gave me goosebumps, like thinking about this when Elena says, this is but the second movement in a game that has been played since those ancient days across the sea. I don't know why, it just gave me like, ooh, just gave me some goosebumps. And then when it references Gavin and it says his sapphire eyes wide, I was like, yes, like Dorian, let's go. Just a shout out to Big D. And then, of course, as they are discussing, like, their plan, and she basically tells Gavin, like, they can't tell anybody, they need to go now and, like, not tell anybody. And Gavin says, if we are to do this, then we need to leave now. I was reading this next to Connor, and we were talking about it, and if you know New Girl, we reference it all the time, but I wanted to go, do we, Gavin? Do we? That just made us chuckle a little bit, but
Can we, Gavin?
Can we, Gavin?
Can we? Oh, all right. Over to Chapter 1 of Empire of Storms. I just keep laughing that Elide is now on a mission to find both Aelin Galathinius and Selena Sardothian.
I feel like Sarah just like adds to it with just the line, to find Selena Sardothian, whoever that was, or whoever she was. And I was just like, really? Like, pile it on the poor girl. Like, geez. We already know she doesn't know.
She has so many names, I'd like more to be added. Like, I also need to find the Old King's champion. Oh, and I need to find the Heir of Fire. Like, she just keeps adding, who are all these people I need to find?
I'm just so excited for her because I feel like she's going to be more excited than anybody else about them being the same person. Like, Kael's struggling, but Elide's going to be like, oh, this is the best news.
Sweet.
I thought this was so funny because when we look this up, and I'm pretty sure it's not technically a word, but when it says Elide's leg twanging with pain, and I immediately just thought of her going, oh gosh, dang it! Like some like
twanging
Southern
with pain.
twang.
like twanging with pain. Oh shoot!
Every step she takes. Darn it. Tarnation.
Gosh darn it! Crud! Oh shoot! My dang leg. It's like we looked it up, and this is technically not a verb. So I don't. We were talking that maybe she meant like twinging with pain, because that's a thing. But
That's a
twanging,
Not a word.
Not a word.
It's not a word at all, or it's not a verb?
Like, twang is a
Yeah.
word, but
Yeah, okay.
twanging.
Twanging, like it didn't, like, you know how you can like highlight the word and then look up the definition or
Right.
like give you some definitions.
Yeah.
I don't think twanging was technically even in that list
Interesting.
of verbs.
I guess I should have added it to my fantasy pronunciation guide.
Yeah. Where was that?
If any twanging people are listening, could you let us know what that means?
Yeah.
Any twangers out there?
You know who you are.
Shout out to the twangers.
Country accent every time she like feels pain in her leg.
My leg.
Dag nabbit.
My cheeks are already hurting. We're on like the fourth note. Oh my God. Okay. I do appreciate though seeing a lot of character growth from Elide in all of these chapters.
Yes.
But we kick it off in just like chapter 1. She's traveling and she was talking about how she won't stay at any of the inns or like go into any town, even though she needs food and even though she could use water or a shower. And was just saying that she had had enough of the kindness and mercy of men. She would never forget how those guards had leered at her naked body or why her uncle had sold her to Duke Parrington. And it was just like that beginning of her being, I don't know, finding some power in herself and I don't know, something to say stand on, but you're going to make fun of her leg, but something like that. And then I guess she's not Kale, so.
Yeah, we wouldn't make jokes about that. Come on.
Us?
Really? Okay. Yeah. So for like her to have that, and then I think that like kind of helps lead up while she's doing this. She's on her own, and she's literally left to no one but herself to like figure out how she's going to survive and what she's going to do. And then I think we ultimately see that when she does see the Ilkin and stuff. But I'm just like excited because I feel like she's going to end up being this like epic BA character. At least I hope so. At least do something really cool. So, anyways, I'm excited for her. I noticed whenever Elide first noticed, like, that's not thunder. It was the wyvern's wings. And like as soon as she said that, I was like, I feel like that's going to be important. Like the fact that we're like referencing it to thunder. So I highlighted the words not thunder. And then later when we get to Rifthold and Dorian's just like, oh, and then the thunder outside. And I was like, not thunder. I highlighted that. Like it's not thunder. And it made like that whole scene even more stressful, I think, because I knew that obviously like we knew they were coming anyway, but it was like that it was happening in that moment just because I just, this seems like it might be important. Kind of like a very casual chapter 1 highlight.
Almost like a Empire of Storms, one might say.
Ooh. Is that what it means? Like the wyvern?
I don't know.
With their like wings?
Literally just thought of it, so I have no idea.
I don't know.
Why not? Let's go with it.
Sure.
Honestly, Kyle said it. It's probably true.
Probably true. You're right.
Don't put that on me. I guess if they're taking over the whole continent and they're flying everywhere, sure. Thunder everywhere. Empire of Storms.
Don't put that on me, Ricky Bobby.
For real though, I did, like, Kyle and I had a conversation when we were starting the book. And I was like, why is the cover a boat and them on the water? Like, that makes absolutely no sense. They're in Terracid. Like, this, like, what is happening? And then it's like, within this first 10 chapters or whatever, it's like, now we're going to Skulls Bay with the pirates. I was like, oh, okay, got it. Should have just read the book.
Yeah, this is also, like, one of the subjects that, like, Lauren and I talk about constantly when we're reading books or watching movies or TV. I'm sure other people have had this situation. But we're, like, at the beginning of it. And she'll be like, whoa, why would they do that? Or like, who's that person? And I have to like pause it and be like, I have the same information that you do. I don't know why I'm getting questioned. Like, let's just watch it and find out.
Theorize. That's fine.
We hadn't even opened the book. This was the cover. I was like, give me a second here.
Well, because it feels really obvious with Tower of Dawn. There's a giant tower on it. And so it's like, oh, there's the tower.
Sure.
But then like, why is there them in the water on a boat?
Well, there's like a wyvern on the cover of Heir of Fire, but if you haven't started the book yet, you have no idea that there's wyvern in the series.
That's true. And same with, I'm pretty sure Rowan is on the cover in hawk form.
Yeah. Ooh. Or if you read like Throne of Glass, there's a female with a dagger on the front, and you have no idea who she is unless you read the book. So that's the same thing if you think about that one.
But who is it? Is it Selena?
Kyle.
Is it Lillian? Is it Aelin?
It's different when it's the first book of the whole series and you literally know nothing compared to the like, what is this, 5th or 6th book that we're reading right now?
There's no way to tell at this point.
Anything
We're
could
lost
happen.
in the series. Who knows where we are? Okay, back into chapter 1.
Back into it.
Oh my gosh.
I did think it was really like smart from the witch's perspective, not necessarily for the good guys, but like from the witch's perspective, that they're like, even when they're flying, they're trying to like sync their wings to beat with each other so that the sound only happens once, like that kind of a thing. I just thought that was a really neat, interesting war tactic that I haven't like super read when it's a dragony related book, I guess, like this one is with the wyvern. But that like First of all, that Elide knew right away because obviously she's been there. But I just feel like that was another thing that I highlighted that I'm like, this also feels like something important from chapter 1 that's going to come back later. And so it's like, I'm going to remember this information. And then we get another moment with Elide. Oh, and this is the one where it has the word twanging in it. But it was saying that Elide made it 2 steps before the sense that was not a sense twanged again, as if a warm female hand had gripped her shoulder to stop. So is this, I know. So is this Anieth? Anieth? Is that the god that we're saying is with Elide?
Aneth. I think
Aneth?
so. Yeah. That's how I'm interpreting all of these.
Yeah,
Okay.
same
Yeah.
here.
There's a lot of invisible hands on shoulders in the.
Yeah. Well, because it happens again with Lorcan later. And I was like, is it? And it felt like it was like the same-ish description. And it was like in a way to protect.
Yeah. And he had 2, because one was pushing him one way, one was pulling the other way. Or that was just one person jostling him.
Make up your mind.
Lorcan, wake up! I have to look up twang now because I'm uncomfortable about it.
The sense that was
only-
not a sense twanged again.
Yeah. The only twang that I'm for sure exists is Mark, but he's dead.
That's
Better
twang.
watch out, Elide. Something's coming for you. Better watch out. Look out.
This is kind of what I thought
Better
it was.
watch your back.
Pet, pet.
It was from like bow and string instruments because I was like, oh, you twang in a guitar, violin, banjo, whatever. I've heard that phrase before. But weirdly, it says it is also a nasal vocal sound. So
Yeah. But like just twang, not like.
Like have a twang. Like a
I'm sorry.
twang.
What was that?
Sorry, that was a little more sexual than I wanted it to be.
What is happening in this episode?
I meant it to come out as like a grunt of pain, and it didn't quite land.
No, it was a grunt. I wouldn't say it was of pain.
Grunt of
Was the-
something.
Yeah.
It was certainly a grunt.
I changed my mind. I don't want to hear from
Okay.
anyone who twangs. So all the
Exactly,
twangers
yes.
out there, you can stay silent.
Twangers.
A twang. All right, no more twang.
Okay.
That should be the last mention of it. So
Yeah.
Oh,
anyway,
wow.
moving
We're
on.
over the twang.
We're over it now.
Yeah,
That was so chapter 1.
I know, right?
Still in chapter 1. Next note.
Still in chapter 1. Okay, still in chapter 1. Next note is when Elide said that she had wished the witch had taught her how to kill. I wrote in my notes, why didn't Manon Irene Elide? Like,
Right. Yeah.
Yes.
why? You know what I'm saying? Why didn't she even just teach her like self-defense like Aelin did for Irene? Like even just in that one moment, it like gave Irene like such a confidence to go do the thing. And instead Manon's just like, good luck, bye. I didn't tell anybody you're out there.
Yeah, with a bum leg. It's
Yeah.
like, thanks for the dagger. It'd do me a lot of
The
good.
sharp end goes to the enemy. That's all you need.
Yeah, right. Don't hold it by the blade.
I don't even think she got that much.
Oh gosh.
That's a great point. You
Yeah.
would think. Yeah, I don't
Just
know.
like
They're
a little something. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like in all the time that she was there with them as a black beak or whatever.
Right.
I think it's just that's such a natural instinct to Manon that it's like, how would she not know? Like, she doesn't think it's something that needs to be trained.
I guess that's true.
Like, I gave you a knife. You know how it works. Go to work.
You've made it this far.
Yeah.
I, again, was just laughing at these characters in this chapter because then we switch to the Lorcan POV and he's hunting, quote unquote, the other 2 word keys, not knowing that he doesn't even have the first one. But then he's like tracking Elide through the woods, has no idea that she actually does have a real word key. And she's just like some random little girl that he happened upon.
I feel like Sarah just decided she was going to pick on these guys. Just like,
Yeah.
because she's like, just like lays it on thick too. Like, in case the reader still doesn't understand. Like,
Throw these idiots into the woods and see what happens.
yeah,
Every
literally.
time she writes about them, back to these morons.
Yeah, and like when he starts to follow her too, and he's kind of talking about that, but he says once he had a chance to study her, learn her weaknesses, kind of like follow her, see what she's about and stuff. But it's like he's sensed that she has kind of a different scent, and he's equated it to possibly some witches that he's run into before. But as I was reading that, I was like, dude's 500 years old, and he's like concerned about that. Like, he needs to take time to follow this girl with a limp who's like clearly hiding from witches. So I'm just kind of like, what are you doing, man? I think it plays along with what we were just talking about with like kind of making them sometimes seem like they're kind of morons. They're not all that. They might be these 200, 300, 400, 500-year-old Fey warriors, but they're not always bright, you know?
Yeah. I mean, you don't get to be 500 without being careful about which women you're attacking in the woods.
I guess so.
Gotta make
That's
sure
true.
that they can't hit back first.
I guess so.
Right. It's like,
I thought that he recognized her outfit and like said like she was like a witch, but I thought he smelled her like off scent that was like the Vogue, and that was like the word key, and that was the smell.
oh, I assumed he was like scenting her witch blood or something.
Because he said like the things I've been hunting for the last several months.
Oh, yeah.
It was that he'd been covered in their blood before.
Yeah. And so I think it was the word key that he smells, because that's why he
call.
like later like cuts her arm to like make sure she's human and stuff, because he thinks she might
good
be
call. Yeah.
Fog. And so maybe that's
why. Good point.
I think he notes that she is dressed. I don't know that he even knows that she's dressed similarly to the witches, because I don't think he's even interacted with one. She mentions it, I think, in her POV, that she dressed in the witches' like leathers to sneak out so that she wouldn't be as easily noticed and nobody stopped her. But he hasn't said anything about her being a witch. He keeps saying that she's human, like utterly human. Yeah. She's girl's 100% human. Like every time he talks about her scent, he recognizes the smell of the word key, but he doesn't know that that's what it is. So like Lauren said, he thinks that she is possessed by a Vogue. And the reason that he cut her, because at first I was like, oh, is he trying to see if her blood's blue? Like if she's a witch, but he was seeing if it was black. Because he thought that she was possessed because he can smell the word key. But I'm like, it's interesting to me that he can't smell the witch blood in her unless they smell similar for some reason, like because of the
or
lineage.
It overpowers something or
a human stench.
I thought he mentioned that he had run into like a party of witches or something.
I mean, he knew that they were hunting him, but...
Yeah, because the witches were following, or he thought they were following him, for sure.
Oh, maybe that's true.
Maybe it's like only witches can smell it, like how when Aelin had the witch killer smell or whatever that was on her neck, you know, kind of a thing.
Interesting.
It's still like, is interesting though. I mean, John's point is still valid. He did spend months hunting and killing Vogue, so why is he worried about an injured one in the woods? Like, he has already taken care of this. Unless, like he said, he's following her for more information, but he said he was only following her to learn her weaknesses, which I feel like her weaknesses were pretty obvious.
But you see his true heart, that he cares about humans, and he's apparently a good guy, even though he seems like a jerk. That's what I'm guessing is going to happen, but I don't actually know.
He's going to kill him.
Oh, get him.
Kyle said it. It must be true.
Yep.
The witches had been pissed when he'd snuck into their forest camp in the dead of night, slaughtered 3 of their sentinels without them or their mounts noticing, and dragged a 4th into the trees for questioning.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe it is like only a witch would be able to scent that. Because it does say that there are some witches like in hiding, like how they're hunting the Kraken witches because they can hide among humans or whatever. So I don't know if like other magical, like if other like Fae can't tell. I don't know. That's really interesting.
But also Fae haven't been in this land in forever.
Yeah, that's true too.
But that just doubles down on the point. He's killed plenty of Vogue. He's killed 3 witches and captured a 4th. He really does have nothing to be afraid of. There's no reason he should be hiding.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Maybe that is part of her kind of gift of persuasion or whatever. I don't know if it has to be intentional, but maybe it has something to do with other people's perception of her.
Where do we get this gift of persuasion thing from?
This was just like a crack theory that John and I started talking about.
I remember John saying that, but I couldn't remember if there was like book evidence other than like these random
Other than like the mentions that we get of like Anieth guiding her in a way. But I mean, other than that, I don't know.
So your theory of her whatever has just as much base as my theory on like every relationship that's going to happen in this entire series. Got it.
Yep, that's a good.
Wanted
that's
to
a good,
know where we are.
Of two people being in the same room together. Oh, they're gonna kiss.
Oh, that God put her hand on her back. Oh, yep.
Upper back or lower back? Because there is a difference.
There is.
Low back.
Lower. Just say that
How
to
does
the
that feel,
God's guiding
baby?
hand. Lower.
So much her twang came out.
Whoa, hey.
Ew. Yikes.
I didn't mean it like that, but it's funny. Oh, but this actually goes like with what we're talking about right now, because there's a couple times that Elide does seem more aware of things than she should be, or there's a lot of times that Lorcan thinks he's like hot stuff, but then he's like not, and he's like surprised that people are able to like, I don't know, do things that aren't supposed to do. So like how like a lead can feel his presence while it's just them in the forest, you know, and he's like so surprised that any just normal human would be able to do that, because usually no one can detect that he's there, and then blah blah blah, you know. It's like this whole like brag on Lorcan moment. And then later, whenever the Ilkin crashed through his little shield, and he's like, no one should be able to do that because I'm Lorcan. You know, so it's either Elide is super, like, aware of things that she shouldn't be, which is kind of what we're talking about, or Lorcan thinks he's a lot more than he is.
He's the worst.
The worst? I don't know. Maybe he's great.
Both.
I don't know him that much. Or it's both. It could be that.
Yep.
I just picture him like the way he's described, hunting her down and hiding, like this big hulking dude, like sort of squatting behind a bush, and she looks over at him. He's like, "How did you see me?" Like this huge guy trying to hide behind a tree.
It's like Sasquatch out in the woods.
I can't see her.
gosh.
She can't see me.
That's headcanon to me now.
Oh my gosh, I love that. Because they are always talking about how massive he is, and he's like towering over everyone, but he's still
I think he's
super
got
stealthy.
himbo energy.
Oh, energy. I get it. I'm here for that.
All right.
Chapter
2. My favorite thing, I just love the little folk leaving gifts for the whole gang. It's like, it's so incredibly cute. They made the little flower crown for Aelin, and she gave it to Evangeline, and then the next day there were 2 because they wanted Aelin to still have one, and then they made one for Evangeline. They make like the little replica of Rowan's hawk form, and he's still carrying it around. Like all of that was so cute. These little details just sprinkled in here.
Well, and I love that Adian said that they were like escorting them like to where they needed to go. And I don't know, I just like that. I hope that we get, I think I said it in a previous episode, that we get like more, like obviously we're getting more of them, but like even, I don't know, right now they just like appear and leave stuff and then run away. Is that their form of communication? Do we ever get to talk to one day? Do we get to see their little tiny homes? Like what? Like I want to see a little tiny little folk village. So I don't know that that's going to happen, but I'd be here for it. So
Cute.
I want them in the army at the end of the book fighting. Just like little tiny sword poking people's ankles.
Untying their shoelaces.
Yeah.
Beginning of the Mario movie with the little penguins throwing snowballs.
Yeah.
just like that. Oh, that's cute though. But with them and literally everyone, just like Rowan and Aelin trying to find any moment alone, this whole entire journey is hilarious to me. And like everyone's so awkwardly aware of what is happening, but like the little people are just like here for it, and they're just like unashamed, just hanging out, and it just cracks me up. Or how they would just like, oops, I forgot this thing back there, I have to go. And you know, just like I can just see the whole awkward interaction the whole time, and I don't know, it made me laugh. But then like while they're having all these like little moments and stuff, we get a little flirty from Rowan and Aelin. She was saying that she like needs to like take a bath or whatever, and he was just like, if you want to take a bath so badly, I spotted a pool about a quarter mile back, you could heat it for both of us. And I was like, ooh.
Yeah, she could.
I know, but she doesn't because they're lame. But she could. And I guess that's all we're going to get, is that maybe they could. So then we get this like one sentence that just said that upon crossing the border, Aelin had sent messages to a few lords he trusted, ... And then it tells us all about it. But like, how did he send these messages? Or like, who did he send these messages to? He's like casually send an email. Or hey guys, miles away. Like, we're coming. There's like a couple things in this like chapter section that I have like that I felt like that doesn't make sense to me. Darrow has like that whole guy who like follows him around and is like their little messenger person, but like they don't have that.
Maybe he wrote it down and then he rolled it up into a little scroll and tied it on Rowan's hawk talons and then just sent it.
Yep.
Or paper airplane and just like
Yeah.
Rowan's wind could take it
Yeah.
Ooh, that's a good
where
one.
it needs to go. I don't know.
I don't
Smoke
know.
signals maybe. And then we've been making jokes this whole time about Selena's bajillion first names, but what we forgot is that Selena, Aelin, Lilith, everything else needs middle names too. Sarah didn't forget though, because Rowan puts in there, and besides, I thought Cloak and Dagger was your middle name. So add that to the list.
I hope somebody goes to the wiki and puts that in the middle of every name she has.
Yes.
It's German. It's Cloakendagger.
I love it.
Yes. And then just like with their conversation, their like flirty banter conversation, Aelin had said, no one has claimed that blast as they're doing. I just don't trust it. And they're talking about Morath. And Rowan says, you trust nothing. And she immediately says, I trust you, which I felt like was obviously like they have this whole whatever, but she
Yeah.
doesn't have that many people. And I just love that she's, I don't know, being vulnerable and being herself.
That's a big deal.
Doing the things. Yes, absolutely. And then
Yeah.
he like repays that with some more flirty back and
Go
forth.
on.
Some more,
That's
Lauren.
with, I know my face is getting red. Where it said his tongue, like they're kissing, they're like doing and it said his tongue brushed hers, lazy deft strokes that told her precisely what he was capable of doing elsewhere. And I was like, oh, highlight.
It's that new adult writing. Welcome to the tandem read.
Wow.
Tongue was twanging.
Stop. We left the word twang in chapter 1.
The last leave it where it belongs.
Oh my gosh. Well, I have a whole other I'm swooning again section, but John's actually the one kicking this one off.
Kicking it off with Aelin dug her fingers into the powerful muscles of his forearms, savoring the strength there. And I know there's a whole thing with romantasy about forearms, so I had to highlight to make a note.
It happens in real life too. It's not just in
Sure.
romantasy.
Oh, okay.
That's so
Well, that's
true.
good, I guess.
It's very true. Romance of any kind. Yeah.
I was like, yes, the forearms.
Yes,
Yes,
yes.
of course.
Which I really appreciated because I missed that. I didn't even highlight that note, but John did. So,
Rude.
I was gonna say I didn't record that one either.
yeah, now John's picking up on it. Now John's swooning over Rowan's forearms.
Yeah.
As he should.
I actually, today, I didn't hear this when we recorded it, but I was editing episode 15, and there was a part where we, like, took a short break, and Lauren and I both took our headphones off, and it was just Kyle and John. And they were like, what do we do now? Is this the part where they said, like, this is our secret meeting to swoon over Rowan?
Oh, yeah.
Did you leave it in the episode? Please say you did.
It didn't make sense, but I put it in the bloopers. There was no natural transition for that, but it was so funny.
That is so
So
funny.
I did save it, but it's not in the full episode. But anyway, so I just had to call that out. So back to swooning over Rowan. This line is so cute. This is an Aelin's POV, but it says, Rowan made her magic sing, and maybe that was the Karanon bond between them, but her magic wanted to dance with his, and from the frost sparkling in his eyes, she knew his own demanded the same. So cute. And then he says, onto her mouth, he says Fireheart, and she says buzzard. I love these little lines. And then it says Rowan laughed again, and Aelin thought she might never get sick of it. That laugh, that smile. And I just put that this is so relatable because it made me think of John, because if you're new here, I'm obsessed with him.
That's so nice. My goodness.
I always like feel so proud when I make you laugh, because I laugh at everything all the time, but it's a little bit harder to make John like laugh. Like, I mean, I feel like I'm hilarious, so obviously he laughs a lot, but just like you're like unfiltered belly laugh kind of laugh. That's like my favorite thing ever. And so I love that. And I just thought that was really cute. And then along with that, it says she's kind of thinking about everyone that she's traveling with, and it says her family and her kingdom. 2 dreams long believed lost. She realized that she would do anything, ruin herself, sell herself to protect. That made me a little emotional. Also, at the beginning of this chapter, in Aedian's POV, it says he'd only seen one girl, no older than 9, weaving tendrils of water above her village's lone fountain for the entertainment and delight of a gaggle of children. I think this is what the Aelin POV chapter, like the Aelin bonus chapter for Empire of Storms, is about. I think it's this little encounter where because that's the only thing I know about it, is that they come across like a little girl. And so I think it's this little sentence, just a quick mention from Aedian. Yeah, I think that's where the chapter is, which if that's the case, that you may be able to read that before. It's super early. So I thought it happened a little bit later, but I haven't read it yet because I'm waiting to read it with you guys. So that might be the bonus chapter. I just had to make a note of that.
Then we get Lysandra while she's traveling, and she's trying out all her different forms. And I'm pretty sure she was doing it at the end of Queen of Shadows too, while they were traveling to Terrasin. And we just got to like hear her doing all the things. But it made me think, Rowan is a fae. And so when he magically changes into his animal form, his clothes magically disappear. But Lysandra is a shapeshifter. She's not fae. So like when she shapeshifts, does her magic, like her clothes also just magically disappear? Or like, I don't know, like does it matter? I also just finished reading a book where all the people magically could change into an animal. Like each one had one animal they could change into, but they didn't get their clothes. And then they were just like naked, or they had to like leave clothes for themselves all over the place kind of a thing. It was like a part of the book. So maybe that's why my mind is there. But that was just a really random, like, do the same rules apply? Because she's not a fae. Are we just supposed to assume? I guess we are, because she just changes into a leopard and then is back and is whatever, and nobody thinks anything of it. So, I mean, they think things of it, just not of her being naked. They think of things like, oh, wow, there's just like a ghost leopard in here. But
one of them might think of her being naked.
Yep.
Aedian.
Ew.
And then I just love this interaction with Aelin and Aedian, where they're just like banter back and forth about like him needing a haircut. And was just saying, like, you know, you keep it longer than he usually keeps it. And then Aelin was like, it's almost the same length as mine. It makes us look like we coordinated it. And Aedian was like, so what if we did? And she said, if you want to start wearing matching outfits as well, I'm in. And then he's like, the Bane would never let me live it down. Just so funny to me. They're so cute. I just love their like little relationship. And then here's another like, how does this make sense moment? Maybe I'm just trying to poke holes today, but I think I'm just trying to like world build, and like I'm trying to create what it looks like in my head. And so these questions pop up, but it was talking about like, and with the money Aelin had schemed and butchered to claim from her former master this spring, they could buy themselves an army to follow behind the Bane, perhaps mercenaries too. But then I was like, where is all this money? Because like they don't just have like cash in a wallet, and they don't have just like a credit card. If it's all in the bank at Rifthold, rip the bank at Rifthold. Like, I'm pretty sure that's probably wrecked. Or do they just have like giant treasure chests with them that they're just like hauling around with all this like gold and money and stuff in it? Because they talk about it all the time too, like, oh, but we have all the money, so it'll be fine, we got all this money. And I'm like, but where is all your money?
Well, if it's in the bank, it's insured, so they're good.
Well, maybe.
Is it in a fantasy world?
Is it an FDIC? I'd like to think that they have it with them just because they left for Terrasin. Like, they weren't really planning on going back to Rifthold. So that would be my assumption, but that is a good question. Because they're screwed if they did leave it.
Well, I mean, if you think about it too, like
right?
they have to have something carrying other things. It's like, I don't know how many people with need of changing wardrobe while traveling this long distance, and like all these rations and foods that they had. There's something that they have with them, surely.
Yeah.
At least a wagon that is carrying these things. Something for
That's true.
Evangeline to sleep in.
Yeah.
On the road.
I just feel like if we can get 2 whole paragraphs on how Kale's wheelchair works with the big wheels and the little wheels and the swivel, then we should be able to get a sentence about a wagon full of all their stuff and explain this for
no.
me. Sorry.
Your book didn't have the insert where it was just an ad for the wagon and the space that it had, and like you could get one of your own
Schematics, how to build it,
Build your own.
materials required.
I mean, I'm not like that picky. It was just a question that came up in my head of while I'm trying to imagine whatever is happening, and that question popped in my head. So, sorry.
Just some logistics would be helpful. Vehicle identification number, the mileage,
What's the horse's name that's pulling the wagon? Like the important
horsepower.
information. Yeah, what's the horsepower?
Yeah, who's the first one getting dysentery and dropping?
Yep.
We need
Are
to
they
know
fording
this
the river
information.
or are they going around? Like, let me know every step.
Because we need these books to be longer. That's
We'll just redo the Oregon Trail, but make it from Rift Hole to Terracin and involve
the Oak Wall
those.
Trail.
Trial.
Trial. They're twanging.
Twang's coming up.
It keeps coming back to haunt us. Tarnation.
If we could just make it to chapter 3, I think we'd be okay.
Let's do it.
Okay,
We're almost there.
focus.
So, along with the whole teasing moment between Aelin and Adian about his long hair, I just love all these little bestie family banter moments in this chapter, like Lysandra letting Evangeline groom her like a dog in her ghost leopard form. Adian and Lysandra making all the excuses to flee the scene when Rowan and Aelin start making eyes at each other. Lysandra and Fleetfoot snoring next to each other. Like all these little notes that are just like passing comments, but they're so incredibly cute. And I just had to call attention to a couple of those. I love them.
Yeah, and then with that, like, we get this, like, passing comment, but it's something I really would love more information on, because they talked about this in Queen of Shadows a bit, and then they bring it up here in just this one sentence about Rowan had been teaching Adian, teaching all of them, really, about the old ways these weeks, about the long-forgotten traditions and codes of the Fae, mostly abandoned even in Maeve's court, but reborn here and enacted now, as they fell into the roles and duties that they had sorted out and decided for themselves. I would love to know, like, what are these roles and duties, and like what does this mean, and do they stand in a certain way? And I don't know, we get these like I don't know, ton of stuff about this Coggin family and their life, and I would love to know just a little bit more about Aelin's court, the main character, but it's fine, we'll figure it out, I'm sure. One day maybe we'll get that information
Once we know who survives.
Oh, don't say that, Kyle.
Okay.
Well, and
Sorry.
Empire of Storms came out first and then Tower of Dawn. So, like, maybe she got some feedback like, hey, it'd be great if we had more information. And then Tower of Dawn was supposed to be a novella, but she's like, okay, here's 800 pages.
Dang. It was supposed to be a novella?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
She was
All
mad
right.
about it. Yeah, I'll give you more information. Take
Yeah.
this and
Give
this.
so much information.
2 paragraphs about his wheelchair.
Well, and, like 4 or 5 about his muscles, so.
And if his you-know-what works.
Not
so.
mad about that.
Oh.
Not that part.
It was poorly timed.
It was so poorly I was still on his muscles.
I'm
Yeah,
sure,
you were.
Connor.
Lower.
Oh, that
All
was
right,
funny.
we get into chapter 3 of Empire of Storms, and I love the whole moment when Manon and her grandmother shows up to Morath. She escorts her up to meet with Erewhon, but we get that little moment when Manon, it says, when Manon lifted her head, her grandmother was before her, that gold-flecked onyx stare. And I noted that. I thought it was super interesting that she doesn't have pure gold eyes like Manon, which I would have assumed that like the lineage probably had, like wherever Manon was coming from, that they all had gold eyes. That just like makes sense to me, I guess.
Well, her cousin does with, what's her name?
Oh yeah,
The lady who had the baby.
Astrid.
Esther.
Astrid. Isn't that her cousin? And she has gold eyes because when Rowan came in.
Pure gold eyes?
Not Rowan. When Roland came in, she was one of the people that was like, okay, compared to the others who were not.
I thought she also had gold flecked eyes.
Yeah.
Because I remember them saying that the pure gold eyes were like super rare, and that was part of the reason that, like, I think that was why her grandmother chose Manon as the heir, because she had the pure gold eyes.
Actual pure gold. Okay.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. Yeah. I just thought that was interesting. And how would Manon have gotten pure gold if, like, her mother or grandmother, like, didn't? So, I just, that kind of stuck out to me.
It's a recessive
You would think.
trait.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Like, genetically, you would think if they're the eyes of the Vol kings, that would be dominant, but I guess not.
Yeah. So a little bit later, as they're like walking into the castle, when it says the 13 parted from Manon and the matron as they passed, then closed ranks like a lethal veil. No chances. Not when the heir and matron were concerned. And I just thought this has to be such a chilling image. Like, walking in there, I mean, you got two covens like flanking the heir and the matron, and that's just one of those moments that I would love to see portrayed like in some kind of movie scene with like really awesome dramatic music behind it as they're like flanking the matron and the heir. I don't know, I just thought that was really sweet and pretty cool image to picture.
Yeah, absolutely. I love for everything we get from Manon so far, obviously. I haven't read the whole thing, but everything so far, like in the previous books, had been Manon like denying her feelings or like saying random passing things, but she had no feelings, like those kinds of things. And then anything in this one was her like saying what those feelings were. So like whenever it was like perhaps something like fear went through Manon or defiance, that's what this had been these past few months. And then like later when she's, tells someone thank you and like does random things like that. And it's just like the little tiny things that you just see this huge like character development from her and like shift in her, which I feel like is only going to continue to grow, and hopefully like she'll turn full team good guy or whatever. But I just love that for Manon. Then Manon had to go and say the dumbest thing ever in her POV, just because like I just feel like she jinxed everyone when she said, but Caltaine was gone, so the whole threat of pure annihilation was too. And I was like, no, why would you say something like that? Like, you can't just like assume it's all fine and dandy, because like literally like,
looks like it's time to let my
sitting
guard
in front
down.
of Erewhon.
yeah, exactly. I was like, really, lady? But okay, this brings us to the new Erewhon. I don't know how I feel about new Erewhon, because first of all, he's blonde, because of course he is, because every
Grown men are
like,
blonde.
This man is blonde.
No offense to blonde people. I am one myself. But typically when the man is blonde, they're not it. They're not the guy. And then some like dark hair, some's going to come in kind of vibes. So there's that. But also this whole like character change really feels like they couldn't get the actor to be in the last few movies of a series. So they came up with a really dumb excuse as to why his face magically looks different, kind of a thing. You know what I mean? So it's almost just like, he was like, oh, I grew tired of wearing that sagging meat. Like just like a dumb reason to like just mix it up, because we just couldn't get this guy. It didn't work in his schedule to be here for the last few movies. So we changed him to this other actor. Yeah. Everyone act like it's okay.
His cholesterol was a little high.
That's what it felt like to me, because it just like came out of nowhere too. And I was like, oh, we just get this huge like, it's Duke Parrington. Oh my God. And then the next time we see him, it's like, no, it's not. It's some other rando. So
well, it almost even like doesn't really make sense, because it's like this clearly isn't his, what you might consider his like real look, because he's a Vogue king. So this wouldn't be, so like, is this the human form of what he actually looks like? But then how would that come about?
Is he just like a hermit crab?
It like just doesn't really make sense, because like
he grew out of that shell.
Did he just find just some random dude, or did he just like create this look?
Some
it's
less
like we don't
saggy
get
meat.
Any information.
Yeah.
Which
Walking
is just kind
along
of
as
weird.
Duke Parrington. Wait, this guy's hotter. I'm taking that body.
Right? I'd assume it had to be another
Give me your
person.
body.
I'd assume it have to be guys, come on. I assume it have to be another person, because I mean obviously he's creating monsters and whatever, but we haven't yet to see him create a normal looking person yet. But I agree. I just feel like it felt really random, and I just don't know how I feel about it yet.
Yeah, because he says, my allies might as well know who I am too. But it's like, it's just like how you would look in human as a human.
Couldn't you just be like, hey guys, it was me the whole time. It wasn't Duke Parrington. Surprise. Like,
Right.
why does it have to be this other random person?
If anything, it would make them trust you less, I feel like, if you just show them, like, oh, I'm someone different. And they were like, okay.
Are you?
Like, why?
Yeah, and the fact that they just like all believe him is like, oh
Yeah.
yeah, this is the same guy we've been talking to for months. Like,
And they're like cowering around him now. It's not even just
Right.
They had a
the
secret
same
handshake
level
to
of
prove it.
respect.
I don't know. Something's going on.
yeah, but he does
Weird.
say that line with like, and my allies might as well know who I am too. But he doesn't. That whole conversation, he does not say, I am Lord Erewhon. I am this and this and this. Like, he doesn't do that. Vernon is the one who is just like later, like says something to him. It's like, my Lord Erewhon, let me something to you. And then they're like, oh, that's his name. That's who he is. And
yeah,
I'm like,
right.
but isn't the whole idea to tell them who you are, yet you won't like tell them that she has to go ask her friend, like, who is this dude? Like, what do you know about this guy's name? Like,
Well, apparently
I don't know.
that's not even his real name because humans can't say his
well,
real
yeah,
name.
right.
So
Well,
maybe
yeah.
he can't even pronounce it with his human mouth. So he's like, I'm not going to bother. They'll tell him who I am.
my Vogue twang would come out. You wouldn't understand.
I knew it was coming. Someone was going to say something about it. Vernon seemed like he was also not chill with being with this guy anymore. Like, he was
yeah.
sitting there being
Yeah,
like,
that's true.
here's your drink.
Yeah.
I'm still your friend, right?
100%.
Yes.
I don't know. I just don't know how I feel about it.
It is kind of odd, but I do have to point out Manon for being a smarty pants, for not in a sarcastic way. That sounded sarcastic. Manon for being smart and not drinking the water in this meeting with Erewhon. Every time that's brought up, I'm like, okay, yeah, good on you for not doing that, because she
That's
and the
twice
matron
now.
didn't. Yes, yeah, you go, girl. But then she's right back to denial, where it says she's trying to like talk him into not destroying the entire city of Rifthold. And it says she didn't care about the city or its people. And I'm like, okay, sure. You don't care. I get it. You're just going to change all his plans around to make sure he doesn't destroy it.
It's fine. It's fine. And then Erewhon just casually throws out there, about what all the other countries are and how he's going to take over, and just says, and especially when Terrasen hasn't a copper to its name. And I was like, or do they, with all the chests that they have? Or don't
right.
they, if all their money was in Rifthold? We still don't know. Just put that out there. And then I'm really sad about that cool glass wall that Aelin just built, because it was so cool. And like, I had just like gushed all about it at the end of Queen of Shadows, and like her like building a cool archway, and now it was in front of it, and it was like so epic. And 100% Erewhon or whoever would have been like smart to bring it down, because he says, that it's more than just a wall, like to show our power, and it's not enough to do that. We have to bring down the wall, because destroying a symbol can break the spirits of men as much as bloodshed. 100% completely makes sense. I get it. You're the bad guy. However, I am sad that it went away, because I really thought it was cool, and I like the idea of it, like, instead of the glass castle, but it being there and being a whole thing.
So
But
quickly, too.
I know.
Some artist in Rifthold was like finishing up a painting of it. They're like, oh my God. Are you
At
kidding
least
me?
they finished the painting.
Nobody's going to believe me. I have this amazing painting of it. Whatever.
I thought it was so interesting too, this like just little half a sentence at the end of their meeting with Erewhon, where Manon's walking out, or she's already walked out, and it just says like she didn't even stop to think to stay and protect the matron after her entire life, like literally a century of that being her sole job, is to protect her. And now she's so concerned with protecting like Dorian, who's supposed to be an enemy, that she's not even thinking about protecting her matron. And especially after, like, John just called attention to that whole line in the beginning where these two entire covens are there to protect her. It's just crazy. That was wild to me.
Well, and in front of this guy, they're now cowering over and like all the things. And yeah, absolutely. But they're like, gearing up. They're going to go do the thing in Rifthold. And she's like giving orders, Manon is, and she says, leave the prince to me. She didn't dare look at Astrid as she said it. I was like, why wouldn't she want to look at Astrid here? unless Astra knows that she's in love with Dorian and she doesn't want her friend to be like, we know what that means, girl, kind of vibes, when your friend does that and like kind of giggles at you on the side when you Anyways, that's my guess.
Wasn't it Astrid that went with her to Rifthold? Didn't they both go to Rifthold to like warn?
Oh, to leave the
warn
message.
And like write
to
the
leave
word in the
message.
blood. Yeah.
So maybe she just kind of, maybe she knows she's got like a little soft spot for Dorian.
That's what I'm saying.
I think
She
so.
didn't want her to see it on her face.
Yeah, I just think it's interesting. Of all the people there, it was that one person being called out that she didn't want to look at whenever she's talking about Dorian.
Well, because Astrid knows kind
She's
of
in
what it's
love
like
with
to feel that way about somebody with the hunter.
I got my shoulders
that's
going.
True. Well, so I don't remember, but when Manon and Aelin were like facing off with the little island cliff situation, and Aelin saved Manon, did Astrid see that happen? Was she the only one who knew about Manon's like life debt to Aelin? Is that part of this?
I don't remember if she saw
maybe.
that
I don't know.
part
Yeah, I
happen.
don't remember either.
Because more of the 13 was, it was all of
Well-
the 13 was there, right?
I would
Yeah.
assume that she'd have had to, because she saw like the dome like
Fall.
fall on top of her.
Yeah.
And then they would have found her on the other side where all of Aelin's friends were, kind of a thing.
Yeah. So at least
And I
by
would imagine at least, Astrid at the very least would know about the life debt from accompanying Manon to like help repay it
Right.
in Rifthold. But I don't know. I would imagine that's something that Manon would want to keep a secret from everybody else too, because that could be seen as a weakness like against
true.
her. So I don't know
Yeah.
if that's part of it, or they're in love. I don't know.
Yeah.
Let's go with that one.
I just noted this when Manon and the matron, they're in the conversation with Erewhon. He's talking about like Aelin and just like everything going on, and he ends up saying Brannon's heir has no allies on this continent, not anymore. But then Manon noted the way that his eyes darted to Eelway just for a flicker, and I was like, "Yeah, man, I know you don't believe what you just said, brother. Like, no, sorry, because he knows something about Nehemia, I'm assuming, and like probably their relationship." So that I just thought that was kind of an interesting note when that was placed in there, that he looked at Eelway, but he knew that like what he said was probably assuming that.
Well, and he's nervous, which is like
Right, exactly.
something we haven't like super seen from him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I just have, is it Ghislaine being called a warrior scholar is like the coolest description ever. Just in general, super cool. Love that. And then I mentioned earlier, just like with Manon, just kind of having all these new showing of like her humanity, I guess. And so like whenever it said she had no idea why she bothered, but Manon found herself saying thank you to like the guy who gave her all her armor and stuff. And I'm just like, oh, Manon, look at you. You're so sweet.
You big softy. Oh my gosh. Speaking of her picking up her sweet new armor, though, we just need to take a moment for this description of Manon's new helmet that she just
it was
picked up.
sweet.
I'd be thinking this guy too. It says Manon only stared at the crowned helmet. It had been forged of the same dark metal. The nose and brow guards fashioned so that most of her face would be in shadow, save for her mouth and her iron teeth. The 6 lances of the crown jutted upward like small swords, a conqueror's helm, a demon's helm.
Oh, yeah.
So freaking cool. I love
So
her.
cool.
I need to see some fan art of that. I don't know if I've seen any,
Yeah.
so I'll have to, if I can find some, I'll send it to you guys.
Sweet.
Chapter 4, on such a similar note, I'm really happy for Lysandra and her new small boobs.
Same. Honestly, I'm jealous. Good for you, Lysandra.
I love that they had a whole conversation about it. Like, she made good on that promise and she got a reduction.
I love that too. And then I just like this moment where they're going into the meeting to meet with the Lords of Terrasen or whatever, and she brings Fleetfoot with her, and it said, that was very queenly, but Aelin had promised herself months and months ago that she would not pretend to be anything but what she was. And I felt like that was huge, because literally since she left Terrasen was anyone but herself. So for her to just like finally claim, we know she's Aelin and stuff, but I love that she's not even going to back down as far as bringing her dog to a meeting. This is who she is. You get what you get. And I loved that. What I didn't love from Aelin in this little chunk was, I don't know, I just felt like she went into it wrong, like with the attitude that she had, and it set the whole conversation off wrong with Darrow, just saying like, a dip of his head was all he offered, and she purred a bit lower, and I was just kind of put off by that, like, I don't know, attitude from her. I feel like part of me want to be like, yeah, queen, you tell him, like, whatever. But like at the same time, like, you need these people's help. They've served this country way longer than you've even been alive. And like, they're going to think you're just some dumb kid coming in here who thinks they can like literally do whatever. And that's exactly what happened, is they just think she's some annoying brat kid coming in and like taking over and whatever. So I don't know. I was just kind of put off by that, just in general.
Yeah, it's almost like she overcorrected, like wanting to be confident and be who she was, but then she was just rude. Like she just walked in and she's like, "What up, nerds? You look terrible as always." Like,
100%. Bow to me.
I will disagree on this comment.
Ooh.
I will somewhat agree that she probably went about it the wrong way, but I think she should have come in like that, because these old farts don't know what they're going up against. And I think it's like,
I see.
Obviously they know who she is. I'm assuming they know what she can do, like her power. I mean, they have to know that it's grown, even though she hasn't like been in Terrasen or whatever. And like, these dumb idiots don't have any magic. And I will go back to my comment from my recap when they're like, yes, get us, like, you need to get us allies. It's like, what have you guys been doing for 10 years?
That's
Like, you've been up here for 10 years. I guess they're not going to be, like, actively doing that while the King of Adarlan is still alive. So I could see that. But maybe that's kind of what Ren and Murtaugh were trying to do, like, down in Rifthold. But they were more specifically, I feel like, trying to overthrow the king and not just, like, not simply just gain allies for their own purposes, even though that was a product of what they were doing. But still, it's like all these other lords that were up in Terrasen, like, you're lands away from Adarlan. You could probably get away with some of this stuff to try and, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, and the fact that it says that Terrasen has not a copper to its name, I feel like with the 10 or so years that they were running themselves, basically running the country into the ground, even if they were trying to make allies unsuccessfully, there would come a time where you just have to say, like, okay, we should just sell ourselves out to a kingdom that's doing better than us so they can take care of us. Because, like, we're no longer the people who need allies to be in charge of. We need a better leader.
Yeah.
And I think, like, the whole conversation they have, like, obviously, like, Darrow's a jerk. And I feel like the things she says are valid. I just think the way she came in with that specific comment, to bow a bit lower to me, that's what, like, that one sentence. I don't know, but that's okay. We can agree to disagree.
Although it did seem like a surprise, though, that they wouldn't recognize her as queen. Like, that seemed to be something that they didn't really expect. Like, obviously they needed their support, but it seemed like these were people that they could likely count on. And then he was just like a total asshat about everything else.
Yeah,
like,
typical man.
Yeah, I don't know. I wasn't like it didn't seem like they were expecting him to respond that way and be like, well, before we do anything to help you, you need to prove yourself in all of these other ways. There was actually a line, I don't know if I thought I highlighted it, but I don't know if I put it in here, about her saying something about utilizing the other type of power she wielded, which was like the royal power of her bloodline or something like that. It was something about the kind of royal power that she held rather than just her like actual power that she could wield. Something about the difference between those two. And it just seemed like Darrow was like not impressed at all with the fact that she has magical abilities. Like he wants her to prove herself in that other sense of like, I don't know, that she's worthy of like ruling Terrasen. I don't know. Anyway.
I feel like it's just like another Kale. Like just an older Kale.
Later.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then we get Lysandra's naming of her new little, what does she have? Just like her land? Lysandra land?
Lysandra land.
How do you pronounce it?
Caraver.
Caraver.
Yeah.
Well, it's cool. And shout out to her. I wish we got like more on it, or like when, other than her just like waking up and being like, I'm naming it this. And then like, that was it. That's all we got. But that was really interesting to hear. And then like that Evangeline's just kind of like on the side the whole entire time. And it said that she was trained by Lysandra to just listen while pretending to be pretty, to pretend to be useless and small. And now I'm like, knowing that she's going off with Murtaugh and like them and stuff, I'm really interested to know what Evangeline like picks up, or the secrets that she learns and stuff. I just feel like she's gonna be an epic spy for them. Like just doing the thing. So okay, so I was reading in the car and I'm reading Empire of Storms, and I am like reading about whatever's happening, and then I bring up to Kyle something, and then Kyle says,
it was like her talking about all of the guys, I think, and I was saying like, oh, the potential couples that we were reading
oh
about.
yeah,
And I was like, and there's always Darrow. And I did like a little hand motion to her.
like
and then,
this little like
instantly in the back, Faye, our 3-year-old now, as of this weekend, just the whole ride home kept going, Mommy, Darrow.
little hand.
Darrow.
And I'd be like, Faye, no, say Rowan. And she'd go, Darrow. Like, no.
Nice.
And it's just like, of all of the characters from this whole entire chapter chunk, that's the one.
That's the one she's going with.
Oh, wow.
But in a complete opposite of how I guess Faye feels about Darrow, I have just like this whole long list of just like the trash he said, and I don't need to like repeat it because obviously you should read the book. But just like him calling her highness and not majesty, him saying like she's not the queen until each ruling family of the territories, blah blah blah, and just him even just saying like, I'm telling you, princess. And I was like, you just gotta like keep jabbing it in there just because like you're just the literal worst. But like one that like super got under my skin was when he said, you can hardly expect us to allow a 19-year-old assassin to parade into our kingdom and start yapping orders. And I was like, the use of the word yapping here really set me off.
Trigger word for Lauren over here.
I don't know why, but I was like, oh, excuse you, sir.
It's on now.
Maybe the things you said before, but you said yapping.
Hell, you son of a bitch.
Yeah, I did not like it. And then, him talking about Lysandra and like calling her just like a common whore. Oh my god. Oh, and then like obviously just like trashing Rowan. How dare you? Because it's Rowan. There's just so many things that was just awful. And then Aelin to come out with, and how long did it take for you to come up with a list of every possible thing to insult me with and accuse me during this meeting?
Yeah.
And it's like probably the 10 years you've been sitting there on your butt doing nothing in Terracin. Well, that's how long it took him to come up with this list.
I mean, like, kudos for getting accurate information on both of these books. Both of these rulers, I was like, dang, they did their research on these people. But they didn't, on the other hand. Like, Aelin knew nothing about these people. Could have done some research.
I have notes on that, Kyle, on that exact thought. So we will get there.
It's your next
That's
note,
actually my next note.
Oh, is
yeah.
it? I should read ahead sometimes.
Thank you. That's okay. I should read ahead because I was just saying the next one. No, okay. I will bring this up multiple times because I feel like in a world without internet, information travels so fast and is like 99.9% accurate. Literally, they all know everything that there has happened in these books, even stuff that feels like it shouldn't make sense for them to understand or know, but somehow they do. And everyone's just like cool with that. Like whenever she mentions that Prince Rowan is her Karanom, and he's like, Karanom, a long forgotten term. What other things did Maeve teach you in Doranel this spring? And I mean, I guess because she like defeated the Volg or whatever, and so people assumed she was in Doranel. I don't know, some of those things. And then, did you enjoy the riches of Rifthold these years, princess? Was it very easy for you to forget us in the north when you were buying clothes and serving the monster who butchered you and your family and friends? And is it like super public knowledge that Aelin is Selena? Apparently, and so we're just all assuming we know this information, and then how did that information get here so fast? And I don't know.
Now, I guess, after she came out of the castle, after she made the wall and announced her real name, and I'm sure there were other spies in the city
But nobody knew what Selena Sardothian looked like. She wore a mask. Like, no one knew it. That was her whole thing. No one saw her face. No one knew what she looked like. And so for her to just say, I'm Aelin, and then be like, oh, that's also this assassin lady that no one knew. Like, I don't know. It's just some of these things. And I say stuff about that later because, like, the king or the Coggin or whatever his name is in Annika, he knows, like, a bajillion things, too, that I feel like doesn't make sense for him to know. But... okay, sure.
Yeah, that's true. I was going to say, like, especially when there was no magic, and, like, magic has returned, but, like, just barely. Like, they went straight for Terrasen, and they just got there.
Yeah.
So,
well, these guys don't have magic.
Right.
To be fair, they haven't said that they don't have internet. Like, that's just an assumption you've made. And there have been some serious jumps in technology before. I mean...
really, just in the middle of all of the chaos of this whole meeting, one of my favorite things was when Rowan said, my brother and sister, and he was referring to, he's called Adian his brother before, but Rowan referring to Lysandra as his sister. Like, I had to go back and reread it a couple of times because I was like, wait, did he really just say that? I just love them so much. I know they've been traveling together for a few weeks. There's obviously been a lot of, like, family bonding happening, but that was so sweet to me, especially saying that the first time that we see in front of somebody like Darrow in this really important meeting. Like, this is, like, his family, too.
Well, even she's like, did you say that about me? Like, you know, like, she, like, sits up, like,
beaming or something like that.
Yeah, her, like, her spine straightens, and she's like, oh, you're talking about me?
So cute.
It's going to be real awkward when his brother and sister start kissing. I'm going to have to stop saying that.
I mean, he's kissing his cousin, so.
That's fair. Who is he to judge? So this is where I wrote my note about, is it Darrow or Darrow?
Darrow.
I was saying Darrow, but then you said Darrow, so I switched to Darrow, and I don't know. Sorry.
I was just sort of writing that I got the same vibes from Darrow as I got from Kale recently. In that, in the book, was he wrong? No, or at least not entirely. Is he going about it in a mature and appealing fashion? An even bigger no. Like, same sort of thing. Like, yeah, you're making good points in a terrible way.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, if there's, like, certain protocol she's supposed to follow, or is tradition in Terrasen, I would assume she's not going to be like, no, screw that, like, whatever. Like, I would think she is currently trying to, like, follow his rules or whatever. But, like, I don't know, I feel like, yeah, he definitely should have or could have gone about that a completely different way.
Well, and Rowan was teaching them the old ways on the way up. Why were maybe he and Adian not thinking, oh, maybe we should tell you how this actually
the current
works.
ways are.
Like, maybe we should tell you the hoops, the legal, like the red tape you'll have to cut through. But no, we're just going to go in there and tell people to bow to us and hope for the best.
There's so few times that we get like, oh, they're like young 20s. Like, they're young. Like, they really don't know what the heck is happening. Like, Rowan, but the rest of them, because even when Irene and Kale meet and she's like, oh, he looks so young, he's only 23. And I was like, oh my God, he's only 23. Like, you know, it just so much happens, you forget that they are. And this, I felt like, was one of those moments. Like, they're just young kids and they don't really know what's going on. But they're going to save the world because it's a fantasy book. But Aelin even says in her POV, like, Kale had mentioned this months ago, and she should have considered it more, that ordinary humans might demand checks against her power. And we talked about that a lot. And I was trying to defend Kale for a little bit because of that. Like, he's not wrong. Like, what he's saying is, like, makes sense from his perspective. And that is where Darrow is, like, from his, like, human-only perspective. But obviously, we've seen Kale. So hopefully Darrow will also have a turn of
But that's also why she didn't consider it. Because the attitude in which it was given to her, she disregarded it. Because it was given to her very, like, toxically. It was like, oh, you know, shut up, Kale. So, like, if he was a little bit better about it, maybe they would have thought ahead.
Yeah.
So it's all Kale's fault is really what you're saying.
Everything here is he picked her up and everything from the end of here, so nothing would have happened if he would have just stayed out of it.
She would have died and this whole story wouldn't have happened.
Way to go, Kale. You broke your own back in a way.
Oh, gosh.
Oh, no. Poor Kale. He's not even in this book, and he's taking a break.
Shouting from
except for in his back. Anyways, it ends this chapter with just Darrow saying, "And as of this moment, until otherwise decided, you shall remain a princess by blood, but not queen." And I was like, oh my gosh, this guy's the literal worst. And like, we had Kale for a while to like and whatever, and then he like had some trauma, and instead this dude just came in like just the worst and just like immediate. There's no defending you. You're just the worst.
So just go off princess until she's queen now.
It's true.
Womp womp.
Big womp womp.
Ugh, okay, chapter 5 is still really, we're just continuing with the theme that Darrow is a butthole. And somehow this is like all my notes, so I'm just going to try to fire them off here. Oh, yeah. Okay. So chapter 5, they're continuing this conversation, and he just decides to throw out there that unless Her Highness decides to be useful and gain us men in arms through marriage, a sharp glance at Rowan, we are alone. I still don't know. I'm so mad. I still don't even have words for that. Especially the jabs, the salt in the wound that he's like throwing that glance at Rowan in the middle of that sentence. And then it calls to mind that she had once laughed at Dorian, laughed and scolded him for admitting that the thought of marriage to anyone but his soul bonded was abhorrent. She chided him for choosing love over the peace of his kingdom, which is crazy because this is really huge insight into her character growth since book 1, but also Dorian's now potentially, because after what he's endured with the collar, I mean, seeing a little bits of his POV now, do you think that Dorian would change his mind on this and put his kingdom first in a situation like that?
I think I could see it just because he doesn't think he's going to find someone like Sorsha again. And it would just make more sense to like help the kingdom in this way instead of like waiting for another epic love kind of a thing. That's, I think, where he's at, maybe. Unless this thing with Manon is real. Then I think he would fly off on a wyvern into the sunset.
Knowing what just happened to his kingdom later on, too, I don't know if he would care to marry for it. Like,
I guess that's
it was
true.
razed to the ground. I better marry to save it.
I think the Dorian before the collar would, but I think he has a different view of a lot of things after his experience with the collar. And from what he learned from his father in those final moments as well. It seems like those things would change a person a lot. And it almost seems like we would see kind of a different Dorian.
Not Dorian. Dorian.
Not Dorian.
New Dorian.
Just a new not Dorian. A new Dorian. Yes.
Anyway, yeah, I just thought that line was interesting. Okay, I thought this was so cool and epic at first when Aelin snuffs out all the light in the room with her magic, and she like leans in and says, "I suggest, Lord Darrow, that you become accustomed to this, for if we lose this war, darkness will reign forever." And I was like, yeah, you tell him. And then he lights his own freaking match and says, "Men can make their own light, heir of Brennan." I mean,
I really wish Rowan would have just sent his wind and blew out the candle.
Yeah, I was going to say, could she not stop his match from lighting too? Like,
I'm like,
Yeah.
Kyle, that is true. Because like it's not like whatever fire she put out, it's not like she created that fire. So why couldn't she put out the match?
yeah.
From his perspective, though, he was like, "Oh, that was a freaking good move. That was epic." Like he's like, he's like patting himself on the back for that one.
Yeah.
I knew I brought these matches for a reason.
that would have been so funny though if he like lights the match and he's like, "Men can make their," and it blows out and he's like, "Men can make their own." Dang it!
Keep sitting there.
He was like relighting it, trying to say the line.
Takes him a second to realize what's happening. He's like, "Oh, okay, yeah."
Just
Trick
like in the
candles.
dark, you just hear the.
Yeah.
Hold on a second. Hold on.
Hold on, I prepared something.
Just wait. I'll get it.
I will say though, again, to play Darrow's advocate, he's not all the way wrong.
Oh my god.
They lived without her for over a decade and did it without magic. He's not being nice about it and probably does want to retain power, but the fact is the kingdom, with the information they have, does not need her. And if her and her friends care for the world so much, they'll save it anyway, throne or not. So what are they to gain from relinquishing their power on their tiny little kingdom that's poor and helpless? But
Yeah.
they don't know everything she knows.
Yeah, that's true.
This is kind of another situation where if everyone was just open with what's happening, maybe the result would be different. But
If you give them like 10 minutes, they'll probably get all the information from some really random source and know. So
he's going to
They have the upper hand again.
What's happening in Morath?
I also find it interesting that they're just kind of like, oh, Rifthold's, getting sacked by a few covens of witches, and there's probably more in the Ferrying Gap, but we're fine. We'll be fine.
It's like,
excuse me, sir.
sure, that's a one-time thing.
I wonder, that just made me think, like, I wonder if they have that because the Wordstone has been in Orinth for so long. Like, the heirs have had that, and it's like been like they've been protected for so long from this, like, whatever, because it's like on the amulet of Orinth.
But Darrow wouldn't know that.
Yeah,
right?
but maybe they have this weird sense of nothing can touch us because so much whatever had happened for so long, and I don't know.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? So maybe they have this like made up in their head false belief, obviously, that nothing can touch Terracin or Orinth doesn't fall or something. But maybe that's where he gets his old man pride from. I don't know.
I can see it.
And his old man pride, because he's gay.
Hey,
Heyo.
that's good.
Old man pride.
Anyway, I love that Aelin offers Ren a spot on her court, regardless of how he feels about her, or like even if he doesn't vote for her to be in power, because of what he did to help Caelan, Adian, and Nehemia. Like, I think that had to require a lot of humility on her part, because I think if I went in there and he was just a total butthole with Darrow and was like backing him up and seemed like he wasn't going to vote my way, like, I don't know that I would have been like, hey, because you helped my friend, like, even if you don't help me at all, like, you still have a place in my court if you want it. Like, I don't know. But I do feel like that showed a lot of character growth on Aelin's part because of that. But then freaking Darrow just like spits on Nehemia's name, and she threatens to gut him, and like, I probably would have done that too. That made me so mad at the way that he started talking about Nehemia. Was just fueling the fire.
I think it was actually Rowan who threatened to gut him.
Yeah.
Like, he took over the
Yeah.
conversation.
Oh, yeah, that's
and
right.
He, like,
Yeah.
And I love that Rowan is the one who like stepped up in that, like
Yeah.
knowing how much that would mean for her and probably how like speechless she was because of comments like that. So I really appreciated him like being there for her.
Yeah.
Yes, I love that too. This is a completely different note. When they first mentioned that Adian had handed Rowan 2 glass vials, before they say what it was, I just had highlighted it as I was reading. I wrote, what is it? Suicide juice? Poison. I meant poison. I forgot the word for poison.
suicide juice.
Suicide juice. Love that stuff.
I legitimately typed out the whole question and then was like, wait, no, that's not.
Oh, man.
I just had to leave that in there.
That is funny. There's like so much in this book that I already feel like reading The Assassin's Blade actually matters now. Like, don't get me wrong, like knowing her backstory and like things about her was like cool, I guess. And like there were things that mattered for Heir of Fire, like we talked about how an Heir of Fire basically summarizes the literal entirety of The Assassin's Blade in it. So I was glad I read it then. However, there's so much that we've been like, I wonder if they'll ever do this, or maybe this character exists still. I don't know. Like, and now it's like all just happening, and I really appreciate that. So I'm excited to a certain extent to go back to Skulls Bay, knowing that I'm pretty sure the last thing Rolf said to her was like, if I ever see you again, or if you ever come back here, I'm going to kill you or something. So like that's probably going to be a whole thing. But I am excited, I guess, to, I don't know, go back to that because we haven't seen it in a couple hundred or a couple thousand pages maybe at this point. And then I think this clarifies, at least I think so, why there's a boat and water on the front cover. However, in the front cover, it does look like it's like obviously Empire of Storms. It looks like there's a storm, and so maybe when they're on the water, something bad's gonna happen in the boat. And I don't know, maybe these are weird, unhinged theories based off one picture.
First cover-based theories. Like, we've not had any
Unhinged
others
theory
in
on the
series.
title of the book.
I've had theories on titles of the book, but not, I guess, the picture.
Yeah.
So
Even I'm not that daring to take the picture and theorize off of it.
It's fine. Maybe something will happen for that.
Maybe.
And then I just love this final line from Aelin, just like leaving the whole dumb Darrow situation and all of them kind of behind her, just saying, for now, I have no plans to lose this war because of some old bastard has learned he likes playing king. And I was like, oh, what a great summary of literally all his feelings and just being, we have other things that are more important than this right now. Also for her to humble herself in that moment because she wasn't super that way in the meeting. And just to like be like, okay, hold on, what is the priorities here? And this isn't it. And Darrow's the worst.
True. So true. But you know who's the best? Evangeline. I love her whole relationship with Aelin. It's just so sweet. And so I just love this little send off where Aelin kisses her cheek and whispers, work your magic on these miserable men while you're at it. And she pulls away and winks at Evangeline and says, win me back my kingdom, Evangeline. So I hate that they have to separate from her, but this is really sweet and just so cute.
It is like a random thing with Fleetfoot as well, where the whole time with Fleetfoot, I'm like, what is this dog going to be doing? Like where? And then they just have like a convenient country home or a convenient like place for him to hang out. And now like Evangeline's kind of in that, like, we can't take a child to this like literal war. So, oh, look, a random person we kind of knew once upon a time. Go be with them.
If Evangeline's anything like our two girls sometimes in their most precious of moments, I would give up an entire kingdom if they would stop crying sometimes. So if Evangeline plays it up like that, I'd be like, sure, give it. I'll give you the kingdom. Just stop crying, please.
I don't know. I hope she does like what I was saying earlier with her just like being quiet and, acting invisible and getting cool information. And we come back to Evangeline and she's like epic. I just want all the girls apparently like Elide and Evangeline. Everyone's going to be some like BA epic girl. I can't wait.
She'll take it the wrong way and end up assassinating the whole court by the time they get back. I'm like, well, it's yours now. Got everyone.
Oh, no. I hope not.
She'll be like, well, I learned it from watching you.
Oh my god. Okay, I do love that Murtaugh calls her Majesty since everyone else was kind of like being a jerk, and then like him just, I don't know, even saying that made me be like, okay, so maybe it'll be okay for Evangeline. Like they're specifically leaving him with someone who seems to be on Team Aelin. I guess I didn't pick up in the actual meeting that Ren was like so against Aelin until the line that he like gave, like, oh yeah, sure, you're always walking away anyway, like go ahead and leave now, or whatever he said. I guess I didn't realize he was like that against her, especially whenever she like offers a place on his court and like they're gonna be besties. And like Elide is so excited specifically to see Adian and Ren and Aelin, and so I was like, oh, he's just part of the group. He's one of the cool guys, and apparently he's a jerk too, maybe. And then when Aelin just like starts giving like blood promises, like cuts her hand and just starts like giving promises to everybody about all the things she's gonna do, and she finally turns and does the last one where it was just, I promise you that no matter how far I go, no matter the costs, when you call for my aid, I will come. I promise you on my blood, on my family's name, that I will not turn my back on Terrasen as you have turned your back on me. I promise you, Darrow, that when the day comes and you crawl for my help, I will put my kingdom before my pride and not kill you for this. I think the true punishment will be seeing me on the throne for the rest of your miserable life. And I was like, yes, that's what needed. The exclamation point, walk away, drop the mic, the whole bit. So good. And then we get a lovely thesis statement for the book.
Nice.
Because we get one of those at the beginning of every book. I was honestly surprised, Con, that you didn't include this in your notes because you're usually the one pointing these out for us. But she gives us her thesis statement, which is to call in old debts and promises, to raise an army of assassins and thieves and exiles and commoners, and to finish what was started long, long ago. So I think that'd be really cool if we get like this whole like weird army of, assassins and thieves and this whole little whatever ragtag group of whoever.
Grab your torch and pitchforks.
Well, if like the lords and whatever are just gonna sit there and do nothing, like somebody's got to do it. So
yeah, what else is new?
And then just her like whole leaving Terracin. Rowan leaves, and that's really sad. And it's raining, but she was saying like she hoped that they didn't notice. Like she was also crying because of that. And she puts her hood up, and that the white stag watched them leave, like was there. And we haven't seen that in a very long time. So that was just a sad moment for her after all this time to get there, just to turn around and walk away. So,
Well, in chapter 1 of Tower of Dawn, I just wrote, we're back to the old pity party Kale from way back in the day. At least this time it's because he genuinely lost half of his body's use, and not just because his friend is closer to the girl they both kind of like. But still, I think it's just like, this is baseline Kale at this point. If he's got nothing else going on, it's just sad all the time.
I know. And he does stuff that I like. I really want to like him. And I see stuff on the internet where people are like so hate, like anti-Kale, or they're like team Kale, and there's no in between. And I feel like I'm like playing between the both, because you guys are all like no Kale, and I'm like, but I really liked him once upon a time.
I love to hate him, and I hate to love him.
But going with what you said, there was just the line where it said, you know, he was Lord Kale Westfall, hand of the king. He hated it. And I was like, bro, you literally are like the second highest of literally everyone in your entire kingdom. But yeah, your life sucks. Woe is you. Like, womp womp. I didn't realize that the word Torre actually meant tower. And then learning the whole history of this whole Coggin family and their rules and their life and killing each other and losing their ways to get pregnant if they do choose to survive, so they can't continue their line, so that they can't show up and try to kill the kids. Like, the whole thing was just crazy that exists, and that we got all the details so much of every single name and thing, and it was just, the whole thing was crazy to me.
In chapter 1.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's wild. So first of all, I don't think we know that Torre meant tower until this book, but there wouldn't really have been context for that previously, I don't think.
What does Chesme mean?
I think I
Healer?
looked it up, actually.
Torre says me.
It means Tower Chesme.
It means fountain.
Fountain.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
There's a municipality in Turkey called Chesme.
That's kind of cool.
That's funny, because I thought it was going to be like based on like Turkish because of how they wrote out coffee. That's the same.
yeah.
That's like the same thing in Turkey. So and just like in general, their naming styles, like this is a very Turkish feel. The way I was picturing the towers and all that.
Yeah, so it might be based off of that. I don't know. My only note in this chapter was that 3 breaths is a long time to bow. I feel like that has to be awkward. I was listening to this part of the book in the car, and I was like counting my breaths as I was listening to it, like listening to all the words that she said by the time I was done with the 3 breaths. And I'm like, if you're just standing, like bowing there in silence, just waiting, and like somebody's next to you, and I don't know. I just thought that was funny. It was like,
Well, what if they breathed
really long
faster than you and they got up, but you're like, I'm only on breath 2. Like, what am I supposed to do? Like, and then you get up and they're still down. And like,
yeah, what if you're a slow breather and they think you're being disrespectful because you're taking too long? Like, are they making fun of me? How do you gauge that?
Just get so nervous you pass out. It's a good thing they're so young, because like being halfway through my 30s, I'm half as good at breathing if I'm bowing down. There's a lot less room for organ movement. I'm like, oh my god, I'm running out of breath.
Okay, back to Empire of Storms. We are in chapter 6. So we're back with Dorian, and we just get like the small little sentence about where Dorian's mom and brother are. And I guess they're just like in a mountain somewhere, and like a residence that they have, and they're just kind of like there. But I did appreciate that it said like he had not sent for them. He'd actually given the order for them to remain. And I was like, I'm so glad, first of all, that he's keeping the toxic people out of his life. His mother did not care that he had a collar around his neck. She had to be clearly aware of that. He needs to go to a mental health retreat. He needs...
Do you think there was any pushback there? Like, was it a single letter that he was like, our kingdom's falling, dad's dead, just stay where you are? They were like, what?
I feel like they don't care.
Yeah, they both seem pretty useless most of the time, so.
And it sounds like they took like all the money, they took like all the stuff from...
Oh, so they were ready for it.
Yeah, they just dipped, and we're fine with that.
You guys, I found an original note from my very first read of the series.
What?
Yeah, I don't own the ebook, but I had borrowed the ebook for Empire of Storms last year. And so apparently I had taken a couple of random notes.
That's kind of cool that it keeps it. Good job, Kindle.
Yeah, right? So I borrowed the ebook again from Libby and I opened it and there were some notes in there. So I got to the spot and I was so excited. So this is my OG note talking about Dorian's not dad. And it says, a demon that had reproduced with his mother not once, but twice. And so my note was, did the demon possessing the king alter Dorian's DNA? Like, if the demon was possessing him when he impregnated Georgina, did that affect his magic at all? Does his little brat brother also have magic that we just don't know about yet? Those were all of my OG notes.
These.
And your voice got higher as you asked him.
Like a question?
But it was like, each one was like, does this happen? Or does this happen? Or does this happen?
No, I also wondered the same thing when I read that. I was like, interesting that he might have some of that going on in him.
Yeah, I also wrote this down because it's honestly sad for him and his because he says it later too that he like never knew his dad as a human or something, and that's just really sad. But also it made me think, like, because Manon is also like descendant of a demon or whatever, like a Volg king. That's how she has her eyes. And so is Dorian. And so are they also cousins? And so are they also going to start kissing and also be cousins? Like, is that how that works in
the
this
fact
book,
that they're
apparently?
cousins guarantees that they're gonna kiss.
I don't think it's because
I
because you were born from a Volg king. Like, it wasn't all the same Volg king, at least.
Well, there's only like so many, but
that would have been a prince. I mean, it wasn't a king. It wasn't a Volg king.
would have been a prince, I guess.
In Dorian's not dad. Yeah, I guess it would have
But
been.
it also wasn't a collar, and I thought the collars were princes, and then the rings were lesser Volg, and that's what he had, was just a ring.
Yeah, it could have been just a random.
But he said he was straight up possessed by it. Like, him and Parrington, he was like, we were straight up possessed by these two. That's his exact words.
Straight up.
Yo.
Well, because he would have had to come up with the rings at some point. Like, it wasn't like...
Yeah. I don't think it was an immediate thing, though. Yeah.
But it is very sad. Like, the whole... Like, on a serious note, the whole concept of that for Dorian is just another layer of trauma, and just really sad. I don't know what else to say about it. I don't know.
It could potentially mean that if Dorian and Manon do get together, and she's part Volg, and he has Volg, they could potentially have a Volg.
A Volg baby.
And after all the other ones are dead, they're like, oh no, we did it again.
But we love this
created
one,
a
so what do we do?
We'll raise it differently. My boy.
I don't know that we had a note about it in here. I think this is the point that John was reading this next to me and asked some questions about the timeline, like the king's age when all of this happened. Because I don't think we get any confirmation on how old the king was, but I think piecing together some of the information we get about the timelines, the king would have been like in his late 40s when he died at the end of Queen of Shadows.
Yeah.
Because I think it said there was an 8-year gap between the king like finding the tomb when he was 20. And then I think it said there was 8 years before Dorian was born. And then Dorian's like 20 now. So I think he would have been like in his late 40s. So if anybody else is wondering, that was the conversation we had.
I do love for Dorian that he's like finally like taking training seriously and, you know, saying he's never going to like be under someone else's like control again. And he's doing those things for himself. I love that for him. I just feel like that's like a healthy way to expend some of that trauma and that, I don't know, emotions that he's going through and like putting it into something like that in a positive for himself thing. And so I appreciate that for him. Shout out to him.
You. Just happy your book boy's getting more muscle.
For Manon, she's the one later checking out his strong legs and stuff. Believe me, I got notes. Okay, anyways, and then in some random Air of Fire episode, whenever we find out that Rowan has ice magic, I made like some silly offhanded comment about like how I hope that one day he could like teach Dorian how to control control his ice magic, and like maybe they could be besties. But now like maybe it's gonna happen because like they're kind of going off together on this cute little bro adventure, and so maybe Rowan can help him, because like even Dorian is all like there's no one here to teach him and no one he'd even dared ask. So I don't know, I'm excited that maybe he gets some help from a friend. But I also just want to know more about his magic. We get like random tidbits, but I want to actually know what it all does and how it works and all the things. Oh, and then this note is just a confirmation on something I guess we talked about in the last episode with the collar. Is he just have a weird tan line? Is it going to fill in? I don't know. But he said like even in the hours that he's been outside, it would always remain pale. Like maybe it always would. It hasn't tanned. It hasn't changed color. So I feel really bad for him for that, and just like that constant reminder for forever. I mean, maybe it will like fade like a scar does type of a thing, but
that was something I didn't connect until just now. Like when they describe Chaol's back, I mean, he was like attacked by magic, but it says that it basically looks like a scar that's like pale, or the skin is pale where that blow hit. And so I wonder if it's because it's like a similar magic, if it's almost like a scar. Like you said, like if that skin is just always going to be pale. I don't know.
Yeah. Just wear a different collar over it.
like a cool one though.
It's a nice little
Like a
necklace.
It says Manon's property on it.
Oh. Okay. Matching ones with the Braxos.
just exact matches to it.
That'd be cute though. Okay, and then this is when it said like thunder murmured across the city, and that was like that moment where I was like, I knew it instantly. No, that is not it. And then Dorian goes on to just like be out on the balcony and just kind of like hanging out, and I'm like, dude, stuff is happening.
And then he has this whole little like full Elsa moment on the balcony where he can't stop covering it in ice. That's all I could think about.
I wrote the exact same thing. So when I saw your note in here, I was cracking up. I was like, oh, he had a whole like he heard the voice, but instead it was like the wyvern's wings, and so he like freaked out and the whole like balcony turned to ice. He literally is Elsa. And then we just get like a quick switch to Manon's POV of them like flying in and seeing the destruction, and it just said, and she hoped she had not been too late in one regard, assumingly about Dorian, but also just the fact that she said she hoped. And again, we just get these like little one-liners from Manon in her POV, and just I don't know, I just love her character growth. I can't express how much I did not care about her in Heir of Fire. And now I'm like, oh my God, Manon.
I love her too. Chapter 7 of Empire Storms. I just was loving Dorian's determination to protect his people and his inner thoughts here, even though his guards won't let him leave the tower, but just all of his thoughts surrounding, I have to get down there and I have to help. And this little comment about how he had killed while enslaved, but never of his own free will. I mean, that would have been a huge deal for him, but he just was so determined to like get down and help, or even just help from his balcony, like with his power, and doing anything that he could just to help protect his people and kind of save them. Just that sort of ownership he seems to feel, even though he's barely been crowned king, but seeing him kind of step up in that way was cool.
Well, and he does it in such a cool, epic way. Like he takes so many at a time. I was like, jaw dropped. So cool. This is when the wall breaks, and I'm just pointing it out because I'm really disappointed by it, and it makes me sad. And then Dorian gets like attacked by this wyvern tail, and there's like venom in it, and then it just brings up that he casually just like has healing magic, and I was like, no, he's gonna get healing magic 10 seconds after he sent Chaol to a whole other continent to get healed. Like, that's really gonna happen?
See, I took that as like he has magic and his body heals faster. Not that he could heal others, but just like
how I interpreted it,
Rowan, heals a bit faster being Fae.
I know, but I thought it was like, because it said healing magic, because it like lists later like that he has raw magic, so it could be ice, or it could be fire, it could be this, it could be healing magic, like that kind of thing. So that made me think that he could do those things, not...
Even if he could, though, it definitely wouldn't be advanced enough to still, heal whatever was going on with Chaol's spine. Because that's what Rowan said. I mean, Rowan did what he could, but it was still like, you should see a professional about this.
Yeah, it just was one of those, like, really? The timing here, but okay, I get it. Yes. He's not the training, whatever. But
then we get this badass entrance by Manon and my baby Braxy, where it says, The witch, meaning the one who was trying to kill Dorian, the witch didn't make it to the ground. One heartbeat, she was perched in her saddle, swinging her legs over it. The next, her head was gone. Her blood spraying her wyvern as it roared and turned and was slammed off the tower by another smaller wyvern, scarred and vicious, with glimmering wings.
I like the way you said that at the end. But like throughout the whole rest of the chapter, Manon kind of has this whole like, you know, oh crap, what did I just do? And then those other witches show up and she's like, how do I hide this kind of a thing? But it, you know, Manon is now like a witch killer, which is what they had like said about Aelin, and they could like smell it on her, like only the witches could, and it was a whole thing. So it makes me wonder like if that's a thing, or was it because Yellowlegs, like Baba Yellowlegs had her hands on Aelin that was like left the smell, or like what?
I mean, unless it's different from Iron Teeth to Kraken, but like she's been killing Kraken witches for
I was gonna say
like they all that's hunt true. The Kraken, so I don't know if that
forgot about
applies,
that.
And even then, before magic fell, I'm sure she's killed other clans people. Like they seem to be like, well, you gotta punish her, so just rip her back off. I'm like, so I'm sure she's killed other ones. Like if their light punishments are that severe.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
that is an interesting thought though. My other note from this section is in Manon's POV. She didn't have a heartbeat to spare to marvel that Abraxos had not balked at the fight, that he had not yielded. Her warrior-hearted wyvern, she'd give him an extra ration of meat for being such a good boy.
For being a good boy.
Who did a good job
The
today?
best boy. Abraxos got a little treat for being a warrior.
Also from Manon's POV, I mentioned this earlier, but it said Manon studied his long legs, more muscled than the last time she'd seen them. And I was like, ooh, yeah, she did.
Yeah, she did.
Kind of makes me wonder what Dorian was wearing at the time, though, to like his long legs, muscled. It's like he wearing like short training shorts in his workout. It's like old school basketball shorts. He's like, whoa, legs for days.
The dolphin hem.
Yeah.
I was also just low-key spooning over Dorian Manon, like being somehow super cute when they're in the middle of near-death experiences. But in Manon's POV, she'd forgotten how much taller he was. Face to face, Dorian panted as he stared down at her and breathed, "Hello, witchling." Some ancient predatory part of her awoke at the half-smile. It sat up, cocking its ears toward him. Not a whiff of fear. Interesting. Manon purred back, "Hello, princeling."
I know. I said that I was disappointed you took some notes. This is really the only one because I just wanted to fangirl over Manon and Dorian. And this little moment is so cute.
It's so interesting.
I hate so much that I don't actually know who actually ends up together. Because, like, when you start a romance book, it's usually pretty clear, like, oh, these are the characters, whatever. Yeah. And there's a couple times you get tricked here and there. But, like, in this one, it's like, I have no idea. And I'm not going to find out probably until the last page of, like, an epilogue where it's like, and then these all people got married and lived happily ever after kind of a vibe.
It kind of is like that.
I know. That's what makes me mad. And so I want to, like, fangirl and have these moments, but, like, I have no idea. But I'm going to enjoy this one cute interaction for now because it is cute.
This is cracking me up that he's like literally dying. He's like panting. Like he can't.
That's what's cute about it. They get these like such passing moments.
Oh, that's so funny. And then I was just cracking up at this because we talked about it in a previous episode. But from Manon's POV, Dorian's sensuous mouth tightened. And I was like, sensuous? Okay, Manon. I would think this was hot if it wasn't how Aelin described the Vogg's lips in Air of Fire.
Oh, no.
It's a leftover of being possessed is his nice plump set of kissers. It's one bonus of it. He came out of it, he was like, whoa, I got the little plump action going on.
Plump set of kissers.
Okay, but then this super epic entrance by Rowan as well. There was so much going on in this chapter, and I was like living for every moment of it. This was crazy.
Well, and Kyle had said at some point. He was just, I just feel like we're going to start these books and it's going to be another one of those we're waiting forever for something to happen. And then we both like separate and we're going to read or whatever. And I come out and I was like, are you still saying nothing's happening? Like, we're in chapter 7 and like literally a war is going on. Like, that was insane. But I loved Rowan's entrance. Of course, it was one of those, like, every time the mention of wind and stuff, and I was just like, oh, that's him. That's going to be him. And then, of course, the last one smelled of pine and snow. And so that's, like, you know, his...
Oh, yeah.
Like...
Yeah, it did.
Musk.
Yes, his musk, his calling card. Oh, we were talking about this is, like, when they first bring up the yielding of whatever that is, and you know, just saying like her kind had no magical shields against any attacks, like because Rowan tries to like take the air out of her lungs or whatever. Only in their most desperate moments, most enraged, could a witch summon the core of her magic in her with devastating consequences. Even the most bloodthirsty and soulless of them only whispered of the act. And then it's like the yielding. And I had wondered this in random times in my own world when I just happened to be thinking of this book. I don't think I've ever actively thought it while reading, so I didn't like write it down ever. Just of like, do the witches even have some sort of magic? Like when magic come back, Manon feels it and she's like, oh, now I'm so much stronger because of my magic. And she's like, you know, can run faster and do things. But like, we haven't actually seen them do any sort of like fire or ice or any of the stuff that we see, you know, even Lorcan do with his shields, and we get like nothing from that. So I don't really know what the magic coming back helps. And they're witches, so like when I think of a witch, especially ones that fly on brooms, like do they have their cauldron or are they doing like that kind of a vibe? Like I don't know what the witches actually do. Also, speaking of the brooms, now that like magic is back, could they just like be flying on brooms again? I mean, they like have wyverns, so, like they don't necessarily need to.
Yeah, I was gonna say, would you want to?
I know, but if it's just like a casual, like, oh, from my cabin, I guess wherever they're at, to go visit Erewhon, I'm just gonna like take my broom down there instead of.
You want to dust off my Nimbus 2000?
I don't know. It just makes me wonder about like just their magic in general. I don't feel like it's super been explained enough for me to like fully grasp it, at least.
Yeah, so I had like a little note here that I feel like I could talk about this a little bit without being spoilery, but if you want me to.
I mean, if it's something we figure out later, I'm okay waiting, I guess, but...
Yeah, I mean...
I don't think you should explain anything.
Okay. I mean,
my
I don't...
thoughts.
All right. Then I won't.
We'll just be confused on the yielding until another day.
All right.
Okay, so chapter 8, moving on. Oh, this is when I was just talking about with Dorian and his like magic and them explaining exactly what he had. And it just said a gift of the king's magic, then the enhanced hearing. So he can like even hear things that are far away, like a fae basically. And it said, you know, his raw magic that could grant him any gift: ice, flame, healing, heightening of senses, and strength, perhaps even shape-shifting if he tried. So it's like he could literally just do anything that he wants. And those are just the ones they listed, really the ones we know of. So it's interesting, potentially all the things that he could do. It's like limitless. I really hope that it's just him and Rowan and he gets to try it all out and we get to see a bunch of cool things from Dorian.
I love that line too. I had that highlighted as well. It's so late in the series, I feel like, but that's still such a cool revelation, I guess, of like his magic to have. This part where Rowan asks if there's another way out of the castle and Dorian just casually says, there's a secret exit from my mother's bedroom. And one, it was really funny that the door was locked, so Rowan like busts it down and then he's like, sorry. And Dorian's like, that's fine. Like the castle's literally crumbling. It's like somebody else would have done it anyway. That was really funny.
See, I didn't think of it like that. I thought of it being like, I don't care about my mom. Like that's how I took it. But then I read your note and I was like, oh yeah, like literally his whole tower just came down. I don't know why that didn't cross my mind, but okay.
But that too. First of all, okay, like my first thought was like, okay, finally, Georgina, good for something, I guess, that her room has this secret tunnel in it. But then also,
secret tunnel.
Secret tunnel. Is this not like super suspicious though that the queen has her own private entrance to the tunnels? And like if Dorian knew about it, I'm assuming that she did.
She didn't know.
How could she not know?
No, just oblivious.
I mean, yeah, I get like that idea that she has no idea what's going on. Totally. But I did think that little boat that they took out was like set up specifically to be like a royal family emergency exit. Like that's how it was like described. Like maybe long forgotten or something. But like the first time she went down there and she saw it, that was how she was like, you know, that there was this emergency exit that they didn't ever use. And so it made sense to me, I guess, that she would have an emergency exit out of her room.
But like, wouldn't the king have had one? I don't know. Maybe there were
Dorian
rooms. But yeah, but then it says Rowan didn't let himself think about it, or that these fools had unwittingly given an assassin a room that connected to their queen's chambers. And I was like, yeah, that too. Like, there's one in the queen's room, and there's one in this random guest room in this other part of the castle. I don't know. That was just like
I'm still confused by the tunnels.
The queen used to have her real love stay in that room. That's why they're connected.
Oh.
Once she was done with the king, she was like, I don't know what this freak's doing anymore, but I'm just going to have
children.
Yeah.
It's my time
done.
now.
I'm going to have a man visit in that room. It's good.
Yeah.
Maybe. I don't know. I just was like, what? I'm really caught off guard by that. I don't remember that from the first read.
Yeah. And then we get this like sad moment where Rowan is like questioning, I guess, his whole relationship with Aelin and saying that, you know, he was glad they hadn't taken that final step in saying that he loved her, or even like doing the full of all the things that they could have done together, because of Darrow saying stuff like, you know, she should marry for the country, or he was just saying he really is just a prince in name and doesn't have anything else, and I'm just some 300-year-old hot guy, like, oh no. And it was, I don't know, it really was sad, all jokes aside, but it does feel like they are always one step forward, two steps back kind of a thing. And I'm still going to keep waiting, not just because they're now separated, but also because they just can't decide to be happy. But
yeah, but then in the same thought, he says, or he thinks, even if this thing between them, even if he knew it was not mere lust or even just love, this thing between them, the force of it could devour the world. And this one part just like started making me so emotional. And it's like 2 sentences. I was like, well, why am I wasn't crying, but I was like, man, this doesn't bode well for me for the rest of the series. I'm like, I feel like I'm so emotional about everything on this reread, but I loved that. But then we jump back over to Tower of Dawn for chapter 2. And really my only note is that I don't have a lot of notes from these first few chapters of Tower of Dawn because I was highlighting everything for the pronunciation guide. Like literally all of it was just new names. There's so much information that's mostly what I was focused on, but there is still a lot of setup happening here.
There's a ton of information. I totally forgot Nezrin was from here at all. When they described, I think it was just the slaves, or not the slaves, they were slaves at one point, but like the servants, I guess at this point, that were like helping them get to the palace, that's the word I was going for, wherever they're staying. And they were saying like they're super straight black, like dark hair and all the things. I was like, oh, that's kind of like what Nezrin looks like. And then later it was like, oh, it's just because she's from here, duh. Like, didn't cross my mind, so oops on my part. And then there's just like this whole point where she was talking about her family who's from there and how, you know, her uncle trades in all these like lucrative investments and, you know, moderately wealthy. His family, you know, has this very beautiful home in the city, but like his dad back in Rifthold's just a baker, and that's the path he chose. And I was like, ma'am, your father still has like a country home. And like we just talked last episode about how rich he was, to just be like, I don't know. So I guess her uncle must be like super wealthy if her dad is not wealthy and living that life in Rifthold. But I don't know, that just made me laugh. And then this was just one of those another moments where like, how do these people know this information like so much faster than the internet, where I believe this is like the actual Coggin, and it said like, I suppose some would call 10 years as a trained assassin to be experienced. So like just casually knowing that Aelin is Selena, and also saying your list of allies is short and brittle. Duke Parrington's forces are anything but. And so we just like somehow know that Duke Parrington's in charge of I mean, maybe just because the King of Otterland isn't, and so the next would be Duke Parrington, but he wouldn't know that Duke Parrington has like denied Dorian's reign as king and is still doing his thing in Morath, and like I mean, but somehow he does. If it took this long for them to get here from Rifthold, and somehow they didn't hear about what happened in Rifthold, but then for the Coggin guy to also already know what happened in Rifthold. Like, where is information getting passed that they're on the boat there, but somehow the information gets there faster than them?
They do have the Rooks and like all of like the Rook riders. So I don't know if they have people flying back and forth. I don't know how long that journey takes or if that's something they're capable of doing. But that's like, okay, maybe for them, that's the reason they get information quickly. But then like, what about the people in Terracin?
I mean, also,
know.
like, they weren't the only ones on the boat. And these guys are saying, like, their spies are everywhere. So they could have very well had other people on the boat that got to the king first. And they're like, these people are coming. Here's what just happened. Blah, blah, blah.
And I thought of that too, like they're just passing information. But like the telephone game, like the information isn't going to be 99.9% accurate by the time it gets there if it's being passed.
Good. You say the telephone game. It's not like they're saying like, hey, some random teen from our town, go over to this country and just tell us what you can find.
I mean, maybe at this point everyone's like dead or a Volg, so I don't know.
Like the oldest prince, he's like the prince of the spies, and he brags on this network that he has. Which, by the way,
True.
only just proves to me that everyone else in this book that says, "Oh, we're so secretive assassins and good at hiding everything," no, you're not, because apparently, no, you're not. Like that's just proof that you're not.
Great point.
But I did write that like none of these political meetings in either of these books are going well. But also, I guess there wouldn't be 2 books about them if they did. If they just went to Terracin, they're like, you're queen. Or if they came here, like, yeah, we'll help you.
Go
and then
on,
it's
queen.
like, skip to the next
Yeah.
one.
Yeah, that's a good point. Because this is literally, like, we've been in this episode for a long time, but this is chapter 2 of Tower of Dawn. So it would not make sense for things to go correctly at this point.
Yeah.
And then chapter 3, this is after they find out about Rifthold, and just like Nezrin's whole going into shock and her whole journey process of this information is so sad. And just because she has been this like, you know, seems to be so confident and know what she's doing and all the things. So just to see a crack in that from her and stuff was just really sad. And I really like Nezrin, so I don't want her to feel bad or her family to die or anything. So
And my only note was when I forget the name, but he was requesting Kale to look into the death of the youngest sister. And he's like, I should like you to watch. Yeah, caution. He said, I should like you to watch with an outsider's eyes to report on anything amiss. Perhaps you will see something we don't. And I just wrote, oh, is there a murder to solve? I'll get out my Clue Throne of Glass edition and start narrowing down suspect, room, and weapon.
Oh my gosh. Does that exist? Can we make one?
That'd be really
I
fun.
don't know. That would actually be really fun.
We got a board game now. We got rum. We got a whole candle collection.
Branching out.
And Vogue sensual lipstick.
Ooh, yeah.
Or like with like, you know, with like a plumping type.
Yeah. I think if you made a board game, honestly, on Throne of Glass, it wouldn't be Clue. It would be like one of those like werewolf games where it's like, all right, now the Vogue wake up and you decide who you're gonna get, and then like everyone else close your eyes and you decide who's a Vogue, like Mafia.
But also, like, Caution obviously has no idea that
Yeah.
Kale is really bad about solving murders and stuff, since, you know, like, there was a whole, like, beast thing inside of all of Throne of Glass, and they still never actually, like, I guess he would know now, but at the time, he did not know the solution to that, and everyone was just like, okay, cool, let's move on. They stopped killing people, so, like, at the end of Throne of Glass, like, now I would think Selena or Aelin or whatever would have told him that, but at the time, and he never solved that. So,
And Kale's probably like currently looking down at his useless legs and being like, yeah, let me get right on that. I'll just go around the castle and look for suspects. Yeah, that's what I need to do. But back to Empire of Storms, chapter 9. Elide said, I was told to stay out of the mountains. Wyverns, large winged beasts, patrol them. And Lorcan just responds with, I know what a wyvern is. And I just thought it was funny that he mentioned it like he doesn't want anyone, even someone he might kill, to think that he's out of the loop on anything. Like, there was no reason for him to be like, yeah, I know what those are. You didn't have to define it.
That's amazing. I didn't even
totally
think
like
about
that.
that. I did think it was funny when I was reading this part that, like, she stopped to like, define what a wyvern was, but I didn't even think about him responding that way. That's so funny.
I mean, it makes sense if they were literally created just now for this war or whatever, and nobody's seen them, kind of a thing. But yeah. Anyways, along that same alpha energy line, he had put up like a wall of magic against the Ilkin, and it said, not snapped, but cracked, as if those beasts had cleaved it. Impossible. No one could get through those shields. Not even Rowan running Whitethorn. And I was like, I mentioned this earlier, where it's just like, is Lorcan just think he's cooler than what he actually is, and his magic isn't that great? But I also just thought it was funny that, like, he has this thing with Rowan, and like, who's gonna be better, and not even Rowan can get through my shield.
Isn't he like 200 years older than Rowan too?
Yeah.
I know.
He's got like the like big brother complex going on.
Yeah, for real.
Won't be showing up by that youngin'.
It is interesting the way that like all of the magic is explained in this book. Each one of them almost has like an element, I guess, attached to it. So he said that his magic, Lorcan's, is not wind like Whitethorn's, and not light and flame like Worthen's Bitch Queen. Not even raw magic like the new King of Otterland. No, Lorcan's magic was that of will, of death and thought and destruction, and there was no name for it. So that's, first of all, cool. But I don't know, I like the way that it's like described.
It does say well, I guess it would have to be Heir of Fire or Queen of Shadows. I think it's Queen of Shadows. There's like a passing comment about Lorcan's magic being like gifted to him by Hellas himself or something. It's another one of those things where it kind of connects him to one of the gods and kind of describes his power as being unique because of that.
Interesting.
But
I thought it was interesting that beheading these Ilkin was the only way to give them a true death, much like witches. And I also thought that Ilkin was an interesting name because it has the connotation of family, like ilk. And it makes me think, were these the creatures that the witches birthed? But they died in the fire. The shadow fire. I thought she killed them in the fire
The
too. But
little
I'm not
ones
sure.
were, but they like seemed to grow super fast.
Yeah.
and that was only 1/3 of Morath.
Yeah. So it kind of makes me think like, I wonder if those are the witch-born Volg.
That's what I said too. I turned to John and I was like, are these the demon babies?
I didn't think that at all. That's creepy and sad.
Yeah.
Because the things are creepy.
Yeah.
And that's my next note. Like, first of all, they're human eyes. Super, like, every creepy creature in this whole thing has human eyes, because obviously they're like some
it's the worst
variation of a human, but it makes it so much worse. This whole interaction Lorcan has with them is honestly in a way funny, because he's just like so sure they're after him because he's of course Lorcan and he has a word stone and whatever. And then just the fact that they're just like, you're literally in our way, can you please move? Like, we don't care about you. Like, we are trying to get to her. It's like the dude needs to be humbled like for a second. Like, but it was like, they had no idea what he bore, who he was. And I was like, sir, you need to calm down.
Yeah, they don't know who you are. Get out of the way.
He has no idea what he bore.
He's like, you looking for this?
For real, though. And then, again, I brought this up earlier, too, with Aneth, and just saying, like, Lorcan could have sworn an invisible hand touched his shoulder. He knew that touch, had trusted it in his entire life, and it had kept him alive this long. And so, it's interesting, like, if it is the same, I guess, God, that he's had it his whole life, and so has Elide. And so maybe they're going to be, like, besties, or more than besties, but definitely at least besties. Is this an enemies to friends or an enemies to lovers? We shall sit and watch for 2,000 pages.
I did find this at least one of these little paragraphs in Queen of Shadows. There is a mention when Rowan and Lorcan are talking, and Rowan says, "Careful, Lorcan, or you'll sound like you care about someone other than yourself." But then in, like, I guess this is Lorcan's POV, maybe it's Rowan's POV, I'm not really sure, but it just says, as a discarded bastard child growing up on the back streets of Doranel, Lorcan had lost that ability centuries before Rowan had even been born. He'd never pitied him for it, though, not when Lorcan had been blessed in every other regard by Hellas himself. So I don't know if it's like that same, I don't know if that's just so like
maybe it's Hellas is the god,
a metaphor, or if it's literally Hellas, like helping him. I don't know what blessed in every regard means, but I know that they've like kind of tied that to Lorcan's power. So I don't know if that's like literally
Interesting that
every
so far
regard. in every
regard.
Interesting so far that the extent of the gods' help has been like hand on shoulder, hand on back.
Go this way.
It's just like I got you. I might back you up if you need it.
Yeah, for sure. We jump into chapter 10, and this is now Elide's point of view, meeting one of these creatures, the Ilkin, and her description of it just made me laugh because she just said, monstrous, what terrible mind had dreamed up this thing? And I was like, Sarah J. Maas, I guess, like, 'cause she's the one who wrote it. Her
She's
terrible
writing,
mind
what
dreamed
terrible monster.
who would do such a thing.
She looks up into the mirror. Oh my god. I thought that Elide's scene of acting like Manon while freaking out on the inside was a very good character moment for her.
Oh, yeah, I loved that.
Like one of the biggest examples of her doing that sort of thing that we've seen so far.
Yeah, I loved it, especially when she like dropped her voice into a purr Manon had so often used to frighten the wits out of everyone. I don't know, because Manon didn't teach her to kill someone, so instead she's just gonna pretend to be what she did see from Manon, I guess. Super smart. And then she's like, tells Lorcan of all her plans and what she needs to do, and gives her thesis statement of like, I need to find Aelin and I need to find Selena and whatever. And then it just said, Lorcan debated telling her what he knew, that the two quests were one and the same. I was like, bro, you could have just saved us hundreds of pages, my friend. But sure. Hold on to your little secret. Because I don't know why, but we'll just keep reading. It's fine.
I also thought it was interesting that like after she learned Lorcan was a fae, after he carried her and she sussed that out, she gave him a fake name and made him promise something to her, which makes me think that she's versed in like the old fae rules, it would seem, about like never give them your real name, and like a promise is like a definite bond sort of thing. If it plays by those rules, I feel like it would, just based off the mythology she uses so far in the book. But
we jump to chapter 4 of Tower of Dawn, and apparently I'm the only one who have thoughts on this chapter, so let me have my monologue.
By the time I got in here, I was like, oh my gosh, yes, all of this.
I know. That's why I have you guys do your notes first. Because I know I have notes on probably literally everything, but you stopped your notes at some point and I just kept going. So anyways, it's okay. Here we are. Oh my God. I have been, since literally Assassin's Blade, trying to guess that Irene Towers was coming back. I tried to guess that she was like the friend Sorsha was writing a letter to. And like literally anytime they mentioned the word healer, I was like, it's going to be Irene. Literally anytime. So, oh my gosh, when the first sentence was, of all the rooms in the Torre Chesme, Irene Towers loved this one the best. I literally stopped, screamed, texted Connor. I was like, Irene. She was like, I've been waiting for this message. And I was so excited. She's finally back. For some reason, I've just decided that I love her. She's literally was in the book for like 10 pages maybe.
Yeah, it was like the shortest story in Assassin's Blade.
But she's my favorite now. Love that. And then it said that Silba had granted her gift, and a young stranger had given her another gift that final night in Inish 2 years ago, and Irene had no plans to waste either. So I love that she is still just referencing that time with Selena. And it's funny because like Elide has no idea, Irene has no idea, like that it's all the same person. I mean, Irene didn't even know Selena's name. I don't think she ever knew any name for her. So as much as I've been talking in all these chapters that like everyone knows everything and it makes no sense, but these people don't. So I guess there's still some of that happening. She says that the cottage that had housed generations of Towers healers, Irene supposed it was fitting somehow that she had wound up in a tower herself. So I was like, yeah, that is interesting, like that it's the same thing. And even later, the head healer lady, how do we say her name? Hafiza even said, even your name, Towers, a hint at your foremother's long ago association with the Torre, perhaps. So like even she's, I guess, kind of questioning it, but maybe that's why she's like some cool epic healer, because her family like started it or something. I don't know. That'd be cool. But I just love this part because I've been joking this whole time. Every time I guess it's Irene and then it's not, I'm like, oh, that's because she's at college. Duh, guys. She's in Healer College. So then we get this whole, Irene had made sure she received the highest marks of her class, a near to perfect score as anyone had ever been given here. And I was like, oh, I so appreciate that we get her like little grade card. Like, I was at college, guys, and I did really good.
I was like, Lauren's going to be so proud.
I was so proud of her. She did it. She was going through college. She made it. She passed her tests. She did all the things.
Valedictorian.
Yeah. I'm so proud. I'm like a proud mom. We also get this moment where she was talking about, fixing Kale's back. And I didn't, it's magic healing. So a part of me was just like, okay, she's going to go in there and she's going to, and it'll be done. And instead it said like, that she was explaining how to fix it and like very big detail, which was kind of interesting, honestly, about how to connect all the things and whatever.
Yeah.
That said, like, especially the weeks, months, perhaps, how much it would take to heal, especially like learning to walk again and stuff like that. So I don't know, makes sense, I guess, that we're here for 700 something pages while Kale's back is being fixed. I do feel bad though, knowing that for Nesrin, because I know she wants to get back to her family and all of that. So that I feel like will be tension between her and Kale. I don't know why, like sometimes I'm surprised that people are so like angry at Aelin for, being an assassin and doing stuff. Like obviously that's bad, but like I guess in the first couple books people were like, oh yeah, she's an assassin, no big deal. And we're like, kind of a big deal. And now people are like, that's a big deal. And we're like, how dare you? So like that's happening. But this is the first time I feel like someone said that kind of about Dorian. And they say it a little about Kale too, but she just says like even Dorian Havilyard did not participate in the fact that he stood back while it happened, and kind of gives her opinion. Mm-hmm. And so it's kind of the first time seeing someone have a negative opinion of Dorian. And maybe I thought back to that one guy that was like, all hail King Dorian, and no one else said anything. And so maybe that was part of like their thought process. Like, is he any better? Like he just sat there and did nothing. We only know for him being in the castle too. That was just an interesting like perspective on Dorian that I hadn't taken yet. I've just seen him as like this horrible victim kind of a person. So for someone to see him also as a bad guy, I don't know. It was interesting. And that's my chapter 4. Thank you.
On to chapter 5. I had a note in here. They kind of are mentioning Kale and Nesrin's like relationship a little bit. And Kale, he's just like kind of thinking to himself, says he and Nesrin had never been good at talking. They'd tried, usually with disastrous results. And I was just thinking, a solid foundation for any relationship. Like, this is going to be successful, definitely, right?
Healthy.
Yeah.
A healthy relationship,
This is also funny to me because it's from Kale's POV. So he's thinking like, we've never been good at talking. But in reality, it's probably just Kale putting his foot in his mouth and Nesrin's like, you idiot. That's how all their conversations have gone.
Or his like pride coming in the way type of a thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And but even up to this point, they've like barely spoken. We have like no dialogue between the two of them at all.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, when they went back to their rooms, obviously, like, she was super upset about the whole learning about Rifthold thing. So she was, like, locked in her room, and it says he didn't see her. He only knew that she went to the bathing room or something by, like, slamming of her door or whatever it was.
Yeah.
She, like, kicked out the servant that was assigned to her
Yeah,
room.
that's right.
Yeah.
She kicked out the servant or whatever. Yeah, it's funny that this is chapter 5, and they've barely spoken.
Yeah.
And really even seen each other, to be honest.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and with that, just like, first of all, Kale being an idiot, and just like the first night, she's going through all of this, and for him to be like, he had the nerve to ask Nesrin if she wanted to share his room or hers, and the shutting of her door was emphasis enough. And I was like, Kale, you freaking idiot.
Dummy.
So yours wheels over to her room.
Oh my God, Kale. But all of this is, of course, like I'm just thinking about their relationship and where we're going with this and how this all happens and like how it affects the rest of it. Because this is chapter 5 and this is like such a new relationship. So it makes me think that this is not going to last. And then these last couple chapters, I feel like just confirm that for me. And so here's me gushing about relationships for the next however many minutes. So first of all, forever ago, Kyle made a random offhanded joke about Kale, that there was no one left for him. And so maybe it would just be Irene. And I don't know, maybe it'd be Irene. And now here's Irene conveniently with Kale and doing the things.
Yeah. Like we had just finished Assassin's Blade, I think. And I was like, well, Kale's all pity party because he didn't, have a relationship with Selena. So maybe he'll get Irene.
Yeah, I know. But Kyle's jokes, as we've seen so far, have been insanely accurate.
This would be the insanest one.
Are you kidding me? This right here would
Now
be
I
the
wanna
most
go back and
insane
find
thing.
From that long of a distance? That would be... I had no reason to think she'd ever come back.
You guessed that
funny.
King of Otterland stuff at beginning of Era Fire. Like,
That was pretty obvious.
oh my
But
God.
this one is like, I had no real reason.
my God.
How would I know
Okay,
that if she
Lorcan.
even came back? If she even came back, that she would be with Kale. Because, like, I don't know. I feel like that was literally not even a theory. It was a joke.
I don't know. I'm just saying, if Kyle has said it, I feel like I have twice very publicly disagreed with something Kyle said and was super wrong. And so I'm just scared to do that about this book. Other things he's totally wrong, I'm sure. But about this book,
It's happened before.
yeah. About this book, I'm just not so sure. So with that information in my head, where Kyle planted that Kale and Irene are supposed to be together, and knowing that Nesrin and Kale are not starting this relationship off on the best
rocks.
foot, we get Irene coming in, and the first thing it was her eyes that Kale noticed first, and I was like, ooh, here we go. And then
Yeah,
like
it
him,
was.
I know, and then him like describing her features, and he kind of like starts going on this like tangent about like her hair and her eyes and her face and all the things, and he starts going to her body, and then he's like, oh, but this is like, he like randomly says something about like really similar to Nesrin. And then he's like, oh, but I shouldn't look at you because, oh, Nesrin forgot about her. Oops, my bad. It's like,
It literally says something like the generous curves or whatever.
Yeah.
yeah. And then he's like, just like, yeah, generous curves like Nesrin. Oh, yeah, Nesrin. Oops, my bad. That's what that felt like to me. It's like, okay, sir. But then for like Irene, she's trying to like communicate for them. And Irene and Kale are just like weirdly staring at each other. And even I said, Nesrin fell silent watching them. Like she's feeling it. She's like, something's happening. Like there's an energy here. And she's clearly aware. Like she feels the spark.
I highlighted that too.
She knows something's going down.
This had to be like so awkward for her too.
Right? That's my random one. They looked at each other, and so apparently they're in love. Notes on that one. But regardless, Irene is freaking hilarious. Love everything about her.
Yes.
She's so funny. And so just like her taking notes about all the things that she's supposed to, or so she says, is taking notes on like his condition and stuff, and just said like, have you used it to completion? And he's just like, what are you writing? And she's like, I'm writing a giant no, and then she like underlines it. Just like this whole interaction is so funny. And then later when she's like actually examining him, and she asks that he take off his shirt so he can look at her back, and he's like, pants too, and she says, after a drink or two, I think.
And then she looks at Nesrin.
I know. And she's like, sorry. And he's like, why are you apologizing to her? And she's like, I assume she has the misfortune of sharing your bed these days. Okay, but like enemies to lovers, I'm just feeling it. I don't know.
And
I'm
Nesrin's
feeling the
probably living
banter.
for it anyway.
Yeah.
She's just like,
She's like, roast him.
I know. She's over there in her own world with like, oh, his muscles and his
That's
shirt
right,
and
yeah.
his, like all the things, and then like
Let me
weirdly
do
get
it.
shut down later. Yeah. But then I just thought it was interesting that Kale like compares her eyes to Manon's eyes. That this close, her eyes were of a golden flame, not like the cold metal of Manon's, not laced with a century of violence and a predator's instincts, but like a long burning flame on a winter's night. So first of all, adorable. Love her eyes. They're cute. He does too. But I don't know. I just thought it was interesting that like it got brought up the same way. Is it supposed to make me think there's some sort of connection to Manon here, or was it just like some weird offhanded Kale thought? Is she going to end up having something with like golden eyes? Because I was on iWatch for a while and everyone had something going on with their golden eyes.
because they're described differently, I feel like not. I feel like they're described more like honey, which is still technically like gold eyes, I guess. But I was imagining them as more of like a really light brown almost.
I don't know either. But Kale would know because he's staring at them a lot. It's twice now. And then just like them getting her notes and her writing like the names of her family and all of that stuff was, we haven't seen anyone do that when people are dying or something, for them to just sit there and like shout out everyone's names like we did when, like Rena Goldsmith or the people in Calicola and like those moments. So this is like the first time we've seen that in a while. And those parts have always like been really emotional for me. So just, I don't know, that was really interesting, but also just like there's so much that Kale doesn't get. Love the guy, but for him to like get this for her and understand that with maybe some of her backstory because of Sorsha, and I'm hoping like that maybe will help her, like have some acceptance and stuff that's happened because of like Sorsha and that connection that Kale has, and maybe even bring them together some. I'm excited for them, and even if it is Nesrin and Kale, I've always liked them too. That's fine, as long as it's someone somewhere. Sounds great.
As long as somebody's happy and in love.
Yeah, that sounds wonderful. It will make me happy.
Somebody's got to start making out soon.
I've been saying that for 4 books, guys.
There's always
gosh.
Darrow.
My big, I feel like, recurring note through this book that bothered me in the first read too, and I just laughed at it again because I forgot that this happened, was when Hussar comes in and she's like asking about Irene's mood or whatever, and Irene says, "I forgot my cave this morning, the thick spiced bitter drink Kale had choked down with his breakfast, an acquired taste," Nesrin had said when he'd asked about it later, and I'm like, just say coffee. Like you there are a lot of new terms in this book already, but this is like the only one that I feel like they decided to translate. Like she gave it a different word, but I'm like, just say coffee. That's a recurring thing in this book, and that just made me laugh when I saw it because I forgot about that.
And then we're at our last chapter of this episode. Ooh, chapter 6, Tower of Dawn. And this is Irene kind of giving her report back at the Torrid Chesme, and just said like that Kale was a man not used to voicing his feelings, his fears and his hopes and his hurts. That much was obvious. And so I was like, well, first of all, she sees so much of him already. They're perfect together. But also, then maybe this explains why, maybe we're getting like insight on why he and Nesrin do have communication issues, and maybe it's something he'll get over and they'll be fine and great. And then we get this whole like sad story of like Irene coming to the Torre for the first time, and like how she felt like she had no one to sit with at lunch, and so she would like go sit in the library and stuff. That's so relatable, like that fear of
The dream.
going to college and having no one to sit with at lunch, and the dream, Kyle. I don't know, I just love her so much. I don't know why. She's been here for 10 seconds and I love her. But then it said, that she's struggling personally with the people in Rifthold, or like accepting, I don't know, Kale as like being someone she'll be willing to help and all the things. And just said that she had taken one look at Lord Westfell's brown eyes, and had known deep down he was not one of them, and neither was his companion, just like being one of the bad people of Rifthold and stuff. So first of all, he's looking at her eyes, she's looking at his eyes, they're perfect for each other. I can't wait. And then also, I don't know, that she's already maybe having some acceptance and hopefully some healing, and she's gonna have some big character development, and I'm excited for her. Love her.
Yeah, I had a comment on this one, and it was about when afterwards when Nesrin like comes up to him and says, "Perhaps we can get an answer for the healer about the completion." It says, "That fast." The light winked out from his eyes. I thought, oh, this is awkward. It mentioned that she tried to like jump him on the ship over, and like I'm just
literally physically jump him.
Yeah, and I'm just like at least help him warm up a little bit. He's probably not very confident about what's going on.
It's her fault? Is that what you're telling me right now?
Listen, hold on.
Are you freaking serious?
The dude can't feel his legs.
He can feel the other things, though.
He can't. He probably can't feel great after she just came.
What?
After Irene just came in and was like, he doesn't know if she's going to help him. He had this weird experience with her, clearly probably feeling some mixed emotions about Nesrin. And then she's just like, yeah, maybe we could just like get this done. We can have an answer for her real quick. Okay, yeah, he's probably not going to be super excited about it.
I'm with you.
Thanks, Kyle. What's the deal here?
So many people in the world who are in wheelchairs that have happy, healthy relationships in that way. And Kale is a prideful idiot that has issues with his own pride, and that's the issue here. It has nothing to do with whatever. I don't know. I just feel like it's not.
I don't think it's
her
not
fault.
A matter of his pride here.
It's not her fault.
I will say it's not her fault that he rejected her, because it's not about her. It's about all the other stuff in his life going on that he's like...
His
no.
life? Her life? Her whole family and whatever.
Yeah, and she's trying to use him as a distraction right now? Come on.
He should care about her. He can help her. She can help him.
She was maybe trying to be considerate because she's like, I'm about to leave and go see my family. We don't know how long she's going to be gone. Like, last chance, buddy, you know?
Also, on the ship, it's like their brand new relationship. She literally just left her family and everything to go on an adventure with this guy she's starting a relationship with. And this is whatever. And then he's just, I don't know.
But this is also the issue with two people who have used this activity not as a... in terms of being close.
Good point.
It's just it is literally just for nothing.
It's a fulfillment of physical need.
Yeah, it's literally like a tool for their own good. And it's never been we're doing this together to deepen ourselves.
There's Counselor Kyle.
You're going to come up on times where he will ask, and like we've seen her reject him outright too, where he was like, you know, before they went through the battle, it can't be seen as something that lessens or greatens their relationship, because that's not what they've ever made out of it.
True.
Regardless of any of it, the fact that happened and he like just eyes shut down, but they don't talk about it. They don't have this communication about it that they need to have. Instead, he just shuts down and starts reading his book. And whenever she even says like, I don't remember what she says, and says something about how she's leaving and whatever, and he literally doesn't respond. He doesn't say goodbye. He just kind of waves her off. And I'm like, that's such the wrong move, which is why I feel like he's in the wrong part, because I just feel like he played it off wrong. But I don't know. I'm not feeling their relationship in this book. I was all about him last book.
Yeah, it's like neither of them are handling this relationship well at all.
The day before where he was like, my room or yours, shutting the door rejection. This her coming in, oh, we can prove it, shutting the door rejection. Like, they're totally not synced up on their needs and wants.
Yeah.
Yes.
100%.
Yeah.
But then she walks outside and is it Sartak? Is that what we've decided it is? Okay, so she walks outside and she has this whole interaction with Sartak that's like very flirty, and I don't know. Now I'm feeling it. So like if Kale has Irene, then Nesrin can have Sartak, and everybody can still be happy.
Yeah.
They don't have to be happy together. They can be happy.
Come ride my Rook.
Well, they were making eyes in the meeting too for like a split second.
Don't say it like that, John, with the voice and everything.
Not the shoulders.
But it's literally the very last sentence of the chapter where she like was walking away and she kind of felt his eyes on her after this whole like flirty interaction, and said, but she didn't dare look back and she wasn't entirely sure why. I was like, because you're feeling him.
You
I don't
why.
know. Yeah. Ooh.
Feeling it deep down in her pants.
She just got rejected. She still needs something.
Oh, wow.
Oh man.
I'm so glad you guys are all finally on this relationship page with me and we can have these conversations.
I was saying these first sections of both these books, I was telling Lauren, I feel like there's so much for you. They're feeding you, spoon feeding you couple scenes. These two people are in a room, and num 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 num. Here it comes.
What?
Oh my God.
What the heck, Kyle? We've all been waiting at 400 years for any couple scene, so I'm glad it's finally happened. So is Rowan. Still not what I want all the way, but it's fine. And I just want to make sure it's clear. I'm not looking to read all the smut. That's not what I necessarily want.
That's what I'm
out
hearing.
Of this.
That's what I'm hearing every day.
Oh my God,
John! I thought you were saying that's what I want. That's what I'm here for.
That's
No,
fine.
That's what I'm hearing.
But it's all the little I'm literally oh, he looked into her eyes and she it's all the little things. It's all the romance all the time. And obviously
all
if smut comes out of that, then that's great. But that's not what I'm when I'm saying it's not happening, that's not what I'm specifically going for. I just want to make sure we're clear on that. So anyways, whatever. We did it. We finished.
Dig yourself into just keep digging your hole over there, Lauren. Just
I am unashamed.
Yeah, we all have our vices.
We've all seen the shoulders, okay?
The hair.
Hey, we thought your shoulders earlier.
Well, that's the end of this section, so let's move on to our thoughts and theories. What are they? What are your thoughts? And what are your theories?
As for my thoughts, I think I'm more interested in Tower of Dawn's story than I am in Empire of Storms.
I knew
Maybe
it.
because I like making fun of Kale too much, and now Irene is doing it for me. So
There you go.
one of my interests is right there in the book. I do still hold interest in the other book, but mostly for Elide and Lorcan and Manon and Dorian. I'm not feeling Aelin's story right now. Maybe it'll get more interesting later, but I will say, like Lauren said, I was a little worried about Sarah Bear's tendency to start books slow, and that combining two would make it seem like an absolute drag, but it has been decently paced so far. A lot has actually happened. As for theories, not gonna lie, folks, I shut my brain off. I remember what I read, but I didn't even try to think or peek into the future. As the Fae might say, I overreached, hit the bottom of my well, and I'm taking time to recover.
Interesting.
I have no theories at all right now.
I think Kyle and I both were after Queen of Shadows, we could have taken a break of some sort. It is so much and it is a lot and all the things. And it does kind of end not super cliffhangery. It felt like a good whatever.
Yeah.
And I'm great with keeping reading and we're doing it. But there is some of that oh my gosh, and all this information. And it's my brain is, I'm struggling a little bit on as far as keeping it all in there and doing the thing. So I kind of get what Kyle's saying in that.
Yeah.
Not about the well part, that's a you, but the rest of it.
I'll try.
We took kind of a natural break there too. I think I was intimidated to start the tandem read, so we waited a while. I think we maybe waited a couple weeks before we dove into the tandem.
Yeah.
Just stick with it. I think you'll be reinvigorated as we get more into the tandem read.
Yeah. Sure.
Okay.
As for my thoughts and theories, I'm just so excited that Irene is finally here. I have literally been trying to predict when she would show up this whole entire time, that I think I made her my favorite character somehow when she wasn't even in the book.
Nice.
Just because I was it's going to be her. Oh, okay. No, I'm going to keep waiting. Oh, it's going to be her. And I got all this hype for it. So the fact that she's finally here is just making me so happy. And the fact that she's just so funny, I just love everything about her. And she's a straight A student and just I don't know, I'm just so proud of her and I just love her. I do hope to see more of Dorian's magic. I said that a little bit. I want to see him do super epic stuff, kind of like he did in the fight that we saw. I feel I don't know what's the point of Tower of Dawn for 700 pages right now, other than love Irene, and then are we just gonna have 700 problems of Kale's back problems? I get that there's this whole like kind of mystery about the sister, and we're kind of looking for people from Morath or whatever, like with rings or whatever. But like Empire of Storms, it's a very clear like we are doing this and we are doing that, and this other one, it's just kind of like we're just kind of hanging out in Annika, so something's gonna happen. I don't know. And then I just really love the idea of like this army of assassins and thieves and whatever that could come together. I think that could be cool. I'm just super upset that the only couple that's like actually doing good is now separated because of course they are. So I am just gonna keep waiting for the romance. So yeah,
The romance.
yes.
Right. Good
That brings
stuff.
us to the cry counter, and I don't think anyone cried at the beginning of this.
No.
Nope.
No.
No
So
additions
maybe in the
this
next
week.
one.
Maybe
Yeah.
in the next one.
Speaking of the next one, we did it. We officially started the tandem read.
Yay.
I'm so proud of us. Next week, we will continue with chapters 11 to 18 of Empire of Storms and chapters 7 to 16 of Tower of Dawn. We have the episode schedule pinned on Instagram as well if you want to follow along chapter by chapter.
Quick reminder that we do have bookmarks on our website for the Tandem Reading Guide, along with tons of other merch inspired by our podcast and ACOTAR reaction videos. Our website is betweenpagesandfriends.com, linked in the show notes or description box below. While you're there, sign up for our monthly newsletter and check out our Patreon for community and perks. Until next time, stay wordy, stay nerdy, don't stress, and stay blessed.
Stay blessed.
Bye-bye
Stay
now.
blessed.
Bye.
Bye-bye now. Bye-bye.
Girl, bye.